Hey there, little listeners. Are you ready for a spooky adventure? Tonight, I have a chilling tale just for you about a ghostly child who lives in an old attic. As the rain taps softly on your window, I invite you to snuggle up and listen closely. I promise it will be both creepy and exciting. Don't forget to let me know in the comments where you're listening from, and if you enjoy the story, hit that subscribe button. I have something special waiting for you in the link below, so be sure to check it out. Now, let's dive into the eerie world of the ghostly child. I remember the night it all began. The rain poured down, making soft sounds against the roof, and the wind howled like a lonely wolf. I was tucked in my bed, feeling safe and warm. But then I heard a strange noise coming from the attic. It was a soft, whispering sound like someone calling my name. My heart raced and I felt a chill run down my spine. I knew I had to find out what it was. I tiptoed out of my cozy room, careful not to wake anyone. The old wooden floor creaked beneath my feet as I climbed the stairs to the attic. The door was slightly ajar and I pushed it open slowly. The darkness inside seemed to swallow me whole. I could barely see anything, but I could feel the air was cold and heavy. As I stepped inside, I noticed a faint glow coming from the corner. I squinted and saw a small figure sitting on an old trunk. It was a child, no older than me, with pale skin and big, sad eyes. I felt a mix of fear and curiosity. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The child looked up and I could see tears glistening on their cheeks. "I'm lost," they said softly. "I've been here for a long time." I felt a strange pull towards them, like I needed to help. "How did you get here?" I asked, stepping closer. "I was playing hide and seek," the child replied, their voice trembling. "But I hid too well, and now I can't find my way back home." My heart ached for this lonely ghost. I wanted to comfort them, but I also felt scared. What if they were not just a regular child? Suddenly, the wind howled louder, and the attic filled with shadows that danced on the walls. The child shivered, and I could see their breath in the chilly air. "Please don't leave me," they pleaded. "I'm scared of the dark." I took a deep breath and sat down beside them. "You're not alone anymore," I said softly, trying to sound brave. As we sat together, I could hear the rain pounding against the roof, and the sound made the attic feel even creepier. I decided to ask the child more questions. "What's your name?" I asked, hoping it would make them feel better. "My name is Lily," they said, their voice barely a whisper. "I used to live here a long time ago." I felt a shiver run down my spine. "What happened to you?" I asked, my eyes wide with curiosity. Lily looked down at her hands and said, "I don't remember. One moment I was playing and the next I was here in the dark." I could see the fear in her eyes, and it made me want to help her even more. Just then I heard a loud crash from downstairs. It sounded like something had fallen. My heart raced and I looked at Lily. "What was that?" I asked, my voice shaking. She shrugged, her big eyes filled with fear. "I don't know. It's always like this at night." I felt a sudden urge to leave the attic, but I also wanted to stay and help Lily. "Maybe we should go check it out," I suggested, trying to sound brave. Lily nodded slowly, and together we stood up. The darkness felt thicker around us, and I could hear my heart pounding in my chest. As we made our way to the attic door, I noticed something strange. The shadows on the walls were moving, almost like they were alive. I felt a chill run down my spine, but I pushed the fear aside. I had to be brave for Lily. We opened the door and stepped out into the dim hallway. The house was quiet, except for the sound of the rain. I could still hear the strange noises coming from downstairs. "Let's go see what it is," I whispered to Lily. She nodded, and we crept down the stairs, trying to make as little noise as possible. As we reached the bottom of the stairs, we saw that the living room was dimly lit by the flickering light of a candle. The shadows danced on the walls, and I could feel my heart racing. I looked at Lily, who was staring wide-eyed at the room. "What do you think it is?" I asked, my voice trembling. "I don't know," she replied, her voice shaking. "But it feels like something is watching us." Just then, I heard a soft giggle echoing through the room. It sent chills down my spine. "Did you hear that?" I asked, gripping Lily's hand tightly. She nodded, her eyes wide with fear. "We should go back," she said, but I felt a strange pull to stay. "We can't just leave," I said, trying to sound brave. "We need to find out what's going on." Slowly, we stepped into the living room, our hearts pounding in our chests. The candle flickered wildly, casting eerie shadows all around us. I could see the outlines of furniture, but everything felt different, like the house was alive. I took a deep breath and called out, "Hello? Is anyone there?" My voice echoed in the stillness. Suddenly, the giggle came again, louder this time. It sounded like a child's laughter, but it was twisted and haunting. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I looked at Lily. "We should go," she whispered, her voice trembling. But before I could respond, the laughter turned into a loud scream. I froze in place, my heart racing. The scream echoed through the house, shaking the walls. "What was that?" I gasped, feeling panic rise inside me. Lily looked terrified, her eyes darting around the room. "I don't know, but we need to leave now," she cried. Just as we turned to run, the door slammed shut behind us with a loud bang. I jumped, my heart pounding in my chest. "We're trapped," I shouted, panic rising in my voice. I pulled on the doorknob, but it wouldn't budge. "What do we do?" I asked, my voice shaking. Lily looked around, her eyes wide with fear. "Maybe we can find another way out," she suggested, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, trying to stay calm. We quickly searched the room for another exit, but the windows were locked tight, and the walls felt like they were closing in on us. As we searched, I noticed something strange in the corner of the room. It was a large mirror, covered in dust. I felt drawn to it and I slowly approached. "What's that?" Lily asked, her voice trembling. I reached out to wipe the dust away, and as I did, the mirror began to glow. Suddenly, the reflection changed. Instead of our scared faces, I saw a dark, shadowy figure behind us. I gasped and stepped back, pulling Lily with me. "Did you see that?" I cried. She nodded, her eyes wide with fear. "What is it?" I didn't know, but I felt a strange connection to the figure. "Maybe it's trying to tell us something," I said, my voice shaking. Just then, the figure reached out to us, its hand stretching through the glass. I felt a cold breeze wash over me and I shivered. "Stay back," I shouted, but the figure continued to reach for us. I could feel its cold energy filling the room. "We need to get out of here," I yelled, pulling Lily towards the door. I pushed and pulled on the doorknob, but it still wouldn't budge. The figure in the mirror began to change. I could see it twisting and turning, becoming more defined. It looked like a child, just like Lily. "Help me," it cried, its voice echoing in the room. I felt a pang of sympathy for it, but I was also terrified. "Don't listen to it," Lily shouted, her voice filled with fear. "It's a trick." I hesitated, torn between wanting to help and wanting to escape. The figure's eyes were filled with sadness, and I felt my heart aching for it. "What do you want?" I called out, my voice trembling. "I want to be free," the figure replied, its voice echoing like a haunting song. "Help me find my way home." I looked at Lily, who was shaking her head. "We can't trust it," she cried. But I felt a strange pull towards the figure, like it was calling to me. Suddenly, the room grew colder and the lights flickered. I could feel the energy shifting, and I knew we had to make a choice. "We can't stay here," I said, trying to sound brave. "We need to find a way out." I turned back to the mirror, feeling a mix of fear and determination. "Can you help us?" I asked the figure, my voice trembling. It nodded slowly, its eyes filled with hope. "But you must be brave," it said. "You must face your fears." I took a deep breath, feeling the cold air wrap around me. "I'll do it," I said, my voice steady. "I'll help you." The figure smiled, and the air in the room shifted. I felt a warm light surround us, and the shadows began to retreat. "Follow me," the figure said, and I grabbed Lily's hand tightly. Together, we stepped towards the mirror, feeling the energy pulling us in. As we crossed through the glass, I felt a rush of cold air and a bright flash of light. I closed my eyes, and when I opened them again, we were in a different place. The attic was gone, and we stood in a beautiful garden filled with flowers and sunlight. Lily gasped, looking around in wonder. "Where are we?" she asked, her fear forgotten. "This is amazing." I smiled, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. "I think we found the way home," I said, looking at the figure, who was now smiling brightly. "Thank you for helping me," the figure said, its voice filled with joy. "I can finally be free." I felt a warmth in my heart, knowing we had done something good. But just as I was about to celebrate, I noticed something strange in the garden. The flowers began to wilt and the sky turned dark. I felt a chill in the air, and the figure's smile faded. "No," it cried, looking around in panic. "I need to go back." I felt a wave of fear wash over me. "What's happening?" I shouted. The ground began to shake, and the beautiful garden started to crumble. "We have to get out," Lily yelled, grabbing my hand. We turned to run, but the shadows were closing in on us. I felt a surge of panic, but I remembered the figure's words. "We have to be brave," I shouted, trying to stay focused. I felt a rush of panic, but I remembered the figure's words. "We have to be brave," I shouted, trying to stay focused. I could hear the shadows whispering all around us, their voices crawling under my skin. "Do you think you can escape?" they sneered, their tone mocking. I looked back at Lily, whose face showed worry. "We can do this," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. The once beautiful garden was changing rapidly. The flowers wilted and their petals fell to the ground like tears. The once bright sky became a swirling mass of dark clouds, and the warm sun vanished, leaving us in cold darkness. "Help me," the figure called out, its voice filled with desperation. I could see its outline becoming fainter. It was being pulled back into a shadowy void. "You can't leave me." It was like the ground itself was opening, trying to swallow everything whole, and I felt drawn towards the darkness as though it sought to claim me too. Lily grabbed my arm tightly, her grip a lifeline in the chaos. "We have to go back the way we came," she cried, and I nodded, even though every instinct screamed to run. Together, we turned and started sprinting through the garden, now transforming into an ominous landscape of twisted trees and curling vines that seemed to reach for us like skeletal hands. The whispers grew louder, echoing through the air, but now they were filled with anger, like a storm approaching. "You cannot leave. You belong here," they hissed, and I felt their icy breath against my face. It chilled me to the bone. I turned to look behind and saw dark, shadowy figures creeping closer. They were intent on catching us, and my heart raced. "I can't believe this is happening," I shouted, my voice trembling as panic fueled my legs. The ground surged beneath us as we ran, rippling like a dark ocean. I could feel the shadows biting at my heels, their cold fingers brushing against my ankles, trying to pull me back into their depths. "Don't look back," Lily shouted, her eyes wide with fear. I focused on the path ahead, but the shadows kept whispering, trying to distract me. "You're lost," they chanted, their voices weaving together, filling the air with dread. "You'll never find your way." My breathing quickened as I glanced back again, catching a glimpse of the angry faces of the shadows. They were angry children, just like me and Lily, but much darker, twisted by their fate. I felt a surge of sadness for them, combined with fear. "They were once like us," I whispered, but Lily shook her head. "Don't listen to them. They're trying to trick you." Her voice broke through my fear, and I forced myself to concentrate on running. We stumbled through a thicket of bramble, the sharp thorns scraping against my skin, drawing blood. "It hurts," I cried, fear bubbling up inside me, but I pushed it away. I had to keep going. The whispers faded for a moment, replaced by a low growl. The air became thick, and I could feel something lurking just out of sight. Suddenly, a loud crack thundered through the air, shaking the ground beneath us. A massive tree loomed ahead, its ancient bark twisted and gnarled, as if it had grown in pain. We had to go around it, but as we approached, I saw faces carved into the trunk, twisted in agony and fear. Their mouths formed silent screams, and a chill washed over me. "Don't touch it," I screamed as I noticed Lily reaching out towards the tree. The faces looked so real, as if they might come alive at any moment. "They can't help us." I pulled her back just in time as a vine lashed out, trying to ensnare us just like the shadows behind us. With a burst of adrenaline, we dashed to the side of the tree, pushing forward. "We can't stop," I shouted, my heart racing wildly. My feet moved faster than I thought possible, the fear of the shadows spurring me onward. Just as we broke free from the grasp of the bramble, I heard the shadows roar in anger, the sound echoing like a thunderclap around us. We ran deeper into the dark forest, whimpering and gasping for breath, and the air felt thicker, almost suffocating. The trees appeared taller, their limbs reaching out like claws. I could feel them watching, waiting for the right moment to strike. The shadows were still on our trail, their whispers now taunting us. "You think you can escape? You belong to us." "No," I shouted, my resolve hardening despite the overwhelming fear. "You can't have us." My voice was more powerful than I expected, echoing back at us from the trees. For a moment, the shadows seemed to waver, but it quickly changed back to anger. Without warning, the ground shifted beneath us again. The forest floor buckled, and a deep chasm opened, threatening to swallow everything. "Run!" I yelled, pulling Lily along as we jumped over the widening crack. I felt my heart pound in my chest, fear threatening to consume me. A fog descended, swirling around us, creeping along the ground like a living thing. My heart raced as I glanced back toward the chasm. The shadows were growing in size, melding with the fog, creeping closer. I could barely see through the thick mist, and the whispers became louder, drowning out my thoughts. "You'll never escape. You will join us." Lily tugged my hand, pulling me back towards a faint flicker of light through the fog. "This way," she cried, hope filling her voice, and I felt a spark of hope myself. We rushed toward it, our feet moving faster than before as the darkness pressed in around us. The light grew brighter as we approached, illuminating our path. I could see the outline of a door barely hanging on its hinges. It was old and weathered, just like the attic door we had come through earlier. A way out, I shouted, my voice filled with excitement and fear. We dashed toward the door, but the shadows were still hot on our heels. Just as we reached for the door, the shadows burst from the fog, their angry forms writhing and twisting. They stretched out claws to grab us, their eyes glowing with hunger. I felt icy fingers brush against my arm, pulling me back. No, I screamed, desperation filling me. I could feel the strength leaving me as I was dragged towards the darkness. Fight them, Lily shouted, her voice breaking through the panic that threatened to consume me. With a sudden rush of determination, I summoned every ounce of courage I had. I turned back toward the shadows, their cruel faces glaring at me, and yelled, "You don't own me. I'm not afraid." As if my words turned the tide, the shadows hesitated. The air shimmered for a moment, and the light behind the door grew brighter, pulling me closer. Together, I shouted to Lily, and she took my hand with strength. We flung ourselves towards the door, both of us determined to break free. Just as we passed through the doorway, something cold wrapped around my ankle, trying to pull me back. "I will not let you go," the shadows roared, their voices mixing into one terrifying cacophony. I felt the weight of their anger trying to drag me back, but I had Lily with me. "We can do it," she said, squeezing my hand. And with that, we burst through the door, tumbling into a bright light that filled the space around us. I closed my eyes against the brightness, feeling the shadows clawing at my legs. But the moment we crossed through, the angry voices fell silent. The shadows were left behind, and the light enveloped us completely. I opened my eyes to find myself in a beautiful meadow, filled with colorful flowers swaying gently in the breeze, and a bright blue sky above us. Lily and I fell to our knees, gasping for breath. We were safe, but the shadows lingered in my mind like a dark shadow that refused to fade. I looked around, the brightness feeling like a dream, the vibrant colors alive with warmth. "Did we escape?" I asked, my heart still racing. "I think so," Lily replied, her voice soft and filled with uncertain joy. But my heart felt heavy with the memories of the dark figures chasing us. The whispers echoed still in my ears. But what about them? I wondered aloud, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. "I don't know," Lily said, looking around the beautiful meadow. "But we made it. We're safe now." I tilted my head back to the sky, feeling the sun on my face, letting it wash away the chill of fear still lingering inside me. But deep down, the shadows would always haunt my thoughts. As we sat there, something shifted in the air, the flowers around us trembling. A breeze swept through the meadow, making the flowers dance. I felt the air get colder for a brief moment, and I glanced back toward where we had come from, knowing the shadows could still be lurking. "They might find a way back," I whispered, feeling that dreadful tug at my heart again. But before I could voice my worries, a chilling wind blew through the meadow, bringing with it a haunting echo, a soft whisper that sent shivers down my spine. "You can't escape us forever," it taunted, the voices of the shadows creeping back into my mind. A part of me wanted to run, but I also felt drawn to the beauty around us. I took a deep breath, the scent of fresh flowers calming me momentarily. But the shadows were still behind us, deeper than any darkness I could imagine, waiting to reclaim what they believed was theirs. And just like that, the fear returned, wrapping around me tighter than before. Would we ever truly escape? And in that moment, I knew the story wasn't over. The shadows lingered, as did the darkness they held, always watching, always waiting. I could feel their cold breath on my neck, urging me to remember, urging me to return. The meadow was beautiful, but deep inside, I knew the shadows were not far behind. Their whispers would echo in my dreams, reminding me of the other world, the place I barely escaped from, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Suddenly, the sky darkened again, a shadow passing over the sun like a veil. I felt my heart drop, the fleeting moment of safety shattering as I instinctively grabbed Lily's hand once more. "What's happening?" I gasped, looking around. The vibrant colors of the meadow began to fade, replaced by a grayish hue, and the flowers wilted as if the shadows had returned. "Stay close," I yelled, but as I scanned the meadow, I realized the ground itself was cracking, just like before. The light dimmed, and shadows began to crawl back towards us, emerging from the depths of the darkness we thought we had escaped. The chill in the air grew more intense, and I could feel dread settling in my stomach. "We can't let them take us again," Lily cried, pulling away from me, trying to get a better view. I watched as the ground split more and more, revealing dark, cavernous pits like the one we had just escaped. "Where do we go?" I shouted, my voice rising above the sound of my pounding heart. "There's nowhere to run." Lily's breath came in sharp gasps, fear etched across her face. Just then, something flashed in the corner of my eye, a shimmer of light dancing above one of the pits. I felt compelled to move towards it as if it was calling me. "Wait!" Lily shouted after me, but I was already taking steps forward, drawn by the beauty of the light amidst the darkness. As I approached, the light pulsed gently, illuminating the shadows that seemed to writhe in pain, pushed back by its warmth. "Don't leave me," I heard Lily cry, panic rising in her voice. I turned to see her stepping back, lost in fear. "It's okay," I called out to her. "I can feel something. I believe it can help us." The shadows hissed in anger, their whispers growing frantic. "Don't trust the light. It will betray you." Lily hesitated, the uncertainty clear in her eyes. But I could feel the warmth of the light, a power I knew could push the shadows away for good. "Come on, we have to try," I screamed, extending my hand toward her. With shaking hands, she finally reached for my grasp. Together, we moved towards the shimmering light, and the shadows shrieked, their cries intertwining with the wind. The ground trembled beneath us, angry and dark, trying to separate us from the glow. But I tightened my grip on Lily's hand and urged us forward. As we entered the glowing circle, I felt a rush of warmth envelop us, pushing back against the shadows. It was a dome of brightness that seemed to shield us from the chaos outside, but I could still feel the shadows thrashing against its edges. The dark figures writhed closer, their forms twisted and grotesque, with claw-like hands reaching out as if they could still snatch us back into their grasp. I could hear their angry whispers growing louder, filling me with dread. "You cannot escape. You will pay for this." I looked at Lily, her face pale as she clung tightly to my hand. She was shaking, her eyes wide with fear, and I felt my own heart pounding in rhythm with the ominous whispers echoing all around us. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice trembling. I didn't have the answers, but I knew we had to keep moving forward. The bright light pulsed around us, and I felt a strange sensation. It was warm and welcoming, but also unnerving, like it was hiding something beneath its glow. I hesitated, uncertain if it was truly our salvation or another trick of the darkness that surrounded us. "We can't stay here," I said finally, "even if it's safe for now." Just as those words left my mouth, the ground beneath us shuddered violently. The light flickered, reducing to a dim glow, and the shadows began to seep through the cracks, reaching toward us with sinister intent. I felt a chill spread through my body, and I instinctively stepped closer to Lily. "We have to go," I urged, but it was hard to tell where to go in this darkening world. Ahead, through the haze, I noticed a narrow path leading deeper into the woods, barely illuminated by the residual light. "Look," I pointed, feeling a spark of hope. "We can try that way." But as I turned, the shadows pressed closer, their angry forms swirling and twisting, desperate to reclaim us. "Not that way," Lily shouted, fear evident on her face. "We can't risk it." But the whispers grew louder, echoing in my mind, taunting and terrifying. "Join us. It will be easier." I shook my head, forcing myself to focus. "No, I won't let them win." A surge of determination flooded through me, and somehow I found the courage to pull Lily toward the path. As we took our first steps away from the fading light, the chill returned, encasing us in an icy grip. The path was narrow, lined with creeping vines that seemed to reach out for us, brushing against my skin like ghostly fingers. I shivered and quickened my pace, eager to escape the shadows that were whispering threats behind us. The air grew thicker, hard to breathe, and dread clawed at my insides. "Is this the right way?" Lily whispered, her voice weak. I wasn't sure. As we moved forward, the shadows followed, their forms melded with the darkness of the trees surrounding us. I could hear rustling, like footsteps shifting through the foliage behind us, but every time I turned back, there was only darkness and the distant echoes of their voices. "You can't hide. You can't run," they taunted. The trees loomed above, their branches bending down like a cage, and I felt their eyes upon us as if they too belonged to the darkness. I kept pushing forward, the path winding strangely, seeming to have no end. I glanced sideways at the trees, and for a split second, I thought I saw faces in the bark, twisted in agony, their mouths forming silent screams of despair. "Don't look," Lily cried, pulling me away. Her voice was urgent, but her panic only made me want to look more. I forced my eyes forward, concentrating on escaping and not letting my curiosity draw me back into the depths of horror. "Just a little farther," I whispered, convinced we had to find an escape soon. Instead of hope, a sick feeling began to churn in my stomach. It felt like the shadows were closing in, thickening with every step, making the trees seem taller and surrounding us with darkness. The whispers intensified, turning into a cacophony of anguished voices that made it hard to concentrate. "Stay with us. You'll never leave." Suddenly, the ground under my feet felt unstable, cracking and shifting. I stumbled and grabbed Lily's arm to steady her, but it was too late. The earth crumbled beneath us and I felt myself falling, my stomach lurching at the sudden drop. We landed hard on a cold, damp surface, surrounded by darkness. My breath caught in my throat as I started to look around, my mind racing. "Are you okay?" I asked Lily, realizing I couldn't see her any longer. The darkness wrapped around me like a heavy blanket, and panic surged inside me, fighting against the calm that was slowly washing over. I think so," she replied, her voice shaky but close. "Where are we?" I felt a creeping dread at her question, unable to answer as I slowly pulled myself up. As I gained my footing, I heard movement nearby, a rustling sound echoing in the dark, accompanied by low, growling whispers that turned my blood cold. "They won't stop coming," a voice hissed, sounding far too close for comfort. "You're trapped now." My heart raced, every instinct screaming for me to flee, but I was frozen in place, gripped by fear. "We need to find a way out," I whispered hoarsely, scanning the darkness, desperately trying to see through the black veil that surrounded us. Finally, gathering my courage, I stepped forward, trying to shake off the paralyzing fear. I felt an urge to keep moving, to find something, anything, that could help us escape. I took Lily's hand, feeling her warmth and the steadiness as we moved deeper into the darkness, the shadows seeming to watch our every move. The air grew heavy, thick with tension, and I could feel the prickling sensation of eyes upon us. It felt as if the very walls were closing in. "What is this place?" I murmured, my voice almost lost in the oppressive atmosphere. Suddenly, a flicker of light shimmered in the distance, prompting a mix of hope and caution within me. It was so faint, like a dying ember fighting against an ocean of darkness. "Look," I whispered excitedly, pulling Lily along. "There." As we drew closer, the light swayed like a candle, casting eerie shadows against the walls. The shapes danced around us and I realized this was our chance. We have to reach it before the shadows surround us. I felt a surge of energy, urging me forward despite the echoes of despair and the shadows closing in on us. We had to push through the thick air, moving faster as the whispers turned to screams, their fury now palpable. "You can't escape. You're ours." But I couldn't let them claim us. I wouldn't let them take us back. As we neared the flickering light, the whispers became frantic, twisting into a chaotic chorus of rage. Then, in one sudden rush, something struck me from behind, a cold hand gripping my shoulder. I whirled around, my heart pounding wildly. The shadowy figures loomed, their eyes glowing with a menacing hunger. "You are ours," they breathed, the chill seeping into my bones and filling me with despair. Just as I felt the sinking dread that this was it, I remembered the warmth of the light we were racing toward. Gripping Lily's hand tightly, I spun back and bolted forward. "Keep running," I yelled, adrenaline surging through me as I pushed past the growing fear. With each step, the shadows clawed at me, their whispers intertwined with growls that sounded more like desperate, horrible cries. I felt their icy breath at my back, but I refused to look. The flickering light grew brighter, and it felt alive, radiating warmth that called me closer. "We're almost there." The shadows were relentless, the darkness closing around us like a tightening noose, but the light pulsed brighter as if it could sense our fear. Finally, I reached forward, feeling the warmth illuminating my fingertips. "We have to jump," I shouted to Lily, and then I let the energy of the light fill me, propelling us forward. We leapt into the light just as the shadows lunged and everything went white. For a second, it was blinding, a sensation of weightlessness enveloping us. Then, just as abruptly, I landed hard again on the ground, this time in a clearing where the air was crisp and the sun shone brightly. I gasped, blinking against the brilliance, relieved but disoriented. I looked around, heart racing. Did we make it? I breathed, searching for the shadows in the corners of my vision, half expecting them to reach out and drag me back. Lily was beside me, breathless and wide-eyed, taking in the beauty surrounding us. The vibrant green of the grass, the endless blue sky, the peaceful chirping of birds. I wanted to believe we were safe, but deep down I could still feel the remnants of the chilling darkness. I glanced at the thickets around us. This clearing felt almost too perfect, too serene. Could it last? Just as that thought crossed my mind, the wind shifted and the joyful birdsong dimmed to silence. The shadows hadn't followed us this time, but a sense of unease crept back into my heart. The beauty of the clearing felt hollow, like it was masking something sinister. A low, haunting wind passed through the trees, whispering once more, "You cannot escape." Suddenly, a figure emerged at the edge of the clearing, silhouetted against the sun. A child with hauntingly familiar features. My heart sank as I recognized the small face, twisted in sorrow, eyes filled with an unearthly echo of sadness and fear. "Help me," it said, voice echoing softly like a distant cry. The shadows churned restlessly in my mind, and I felt the pull to answer, to reach out. "Don't listen," Lily shouted, but the child's voice sang to me, calling me closer. "Please," it whispered, and I could see it more clearly now, its small frame trembling as if it teetered between the worlds. The shadows behind it shivered in anticipation, their whispers growing more intense. "Don't do it," Lily screamed, pulling me away as I started to step towards the figure. I was torn between compassion and fear. The child's eyes were so pleading, like they contained the weight of the very darkness we had fought against. "I need your help," it begged again, the trees around us twisting malevolently, echoing the cruel nature of shadows long lost. I hesitated, realizing it could be a trick, but that look of despair resonated in my heart. "We can't help people who are lost to darkness," I said, stepping back, but I could sense my own heart wavering. The shadows behind it cried out, urging me to succumb. "No," I yelled back, shaking off the shadow's call that threatened my resolve. As the shadows swirled around the child, I felt a rush of emotions drown out my fear. "Run," Lily shouted again, grabbing my hand and yanking me back into motion. I tore my gaze from those pleading eyes, and we dashed deeper into the clearing as the sunlight dimmed, replaced by unsettling shadows that crept steadily, trying to encircle us again. The darkness was closing in fast. I could feel the whispers rising like a storm, and the echoes of the child's voice rang in my ears, the plea that threatened to pull me back. "Don't let them get you," Lily urged, pulling me on. "They're trying to trap you." Every step felt heavier, as if we were wading through a sea of despair. I could still hear the shadows wailing, a storm of voices mingling in a furious crescendo, but I forced myself to focus, blocking them out, knowing we had to keep moving or risk being caught again. Ahead, a massive tree stood proudly, its impressive trunk twisted and expansive. "Maybe we can take shelter in there," I suggested, and Lily nodded bravely. We rushed toward it, and as we reached the trunk, I noticed strange markings swirling around the bark, symbols I didn't recognize etched deep into the wood. They pulsed softly, leaving traces of light as if guarding a hidden passage. "What are those?" I wondered aloud, but my heart said we had no time to lose. "Just go," Lily urged, anxiety in her voice. "If those marks are protective, we can hide inside." We ducked behind the gnarled roots, seeking refuge from the encroaching shadows that swirled angrily, gathering strength. The whispers grew fainter momentarily, but they were still there, lurking just beyond the light. We pressed ourselves against the cool, ancient bark, hoping the tree would offer us some sort of sanctuary. But the shadows wouldn't relent, hissing and clawing like a tempest outside. "You can't hide forever. You belong with us. You belong in the darkness." The air was thick, pressing down on me, and I could hear my heart pounding hard in my chest. Every word from the shadows felt like icy fingers wrapping around my throat, squeezing tight. I fought against the rising panic, but as I pressed against the tree, it felt like the whispers were creeping inside my head, swirling into a tornado of chaos. "Stay calm," I whispered to myself, forcing my breathing to steady. "We can't give in." I looked over at Lily, her face pale and drawn, eyes wide with terror. She was trembling, but there was determination shining behind her fear. I knew she was as scared as I was, and it gave me courage. Suddenly, the tree began to shake violently, sending vibrations through the ground. The shadows outside howled feverishly, clawing at the tree's roots. I could see their dark forms swirling like smoke, blackening the atmosphere, their rage palpable. This isn't just a tree, I realized. It's a barrier. I could feel a warmth radiating from the intricate symbols carved into the bark, a contrast to the chilling darkness outside. "There has to be a way to activate this," I said, focusing on the markings. "Maybe if we could tap into whatever power the tree held, it could protect us." "We can't stay here forever," Lily urged, her voice trembling. But as her words hung in the air, I don't think she believed it either. The shadows pushed harder, letting out a chorus of distorted screams, threatening to tear us apart. I knelt down alongside the tree, tracing my fingers over the strange symbols. They pulsed under my touch, radiating warmth as if responding to my presence. "Lily, help me," I shouted, showing her where to place her hands. She knelt beside me, and together we pressed forward, each trying to draw strength from the ancient tree. As we focused, the symbols began to glow, casting shadows that danced wildly around us. "It's working," I exclaimed, hope igniting in my chest. But just then a dark figure surged forward, breaking through the shadows. This one was larger, towering above us, its face obscured but its eyes burning like coals. "Fools!" it roared, echoing through the clearing. "You think you can escape your fate?" I could feel the fear surging in my veins, but I refused to back down. "We can make it," I yelled back defiantly, raising my chin. Suddenly, the tree responded to my challenge, its bark cracking and splintering, releasing a brilliant flash of light that momentarily blinded the shadow creature. It shrieked in fury, the flames of its eyes dimming as it staggered back. I took this chance to concentrate harder on the symbols. "Keep pushing," I urged Lily, and together we pressed into the tree, our hands locked in place, a united front against the darkness. The warmth intensified, radiating through me and filling the air with a dazzling light that shattered the shadows surrounding us. But just as the darkness recoiled, I felt something tugging at my subconscious, a pull toward the figure lurking in the shadows. Images began to flood my mind, moments of despair, of loss, the faces of those I loved twisted into sorrowful masks urging me to join them. "You can't fight forever," the shadowed figure hissed. "We were waiting for you. You belong with us, just let go." I shook my head violently, clenching my teeth as the temptations grew stronger. "I won't succumb to you," I declared, trying to drown out the haunting voices. I could sense Lily faltering beside me, her grip slipping. "Don't listen to them," I shouted, my voice rising above the noise. But the distance between us and the darkness was shrinking fast, the shadows closing in faster than before. "Fight back. Remember who we are." This seemed to awaken something in her. Her grip tightened and her posture grew firm. "Yeah, we're stronger together," she yelled defiantly. Slowly, we started to feel the tree respond even more, the glow around us thrumming like a heartbeat. Swirls of light danced at our fingertips, connecting us to whatever ancient power resided within. The larger shadows twisted and contorted, shrieking as the light grew brighter, pushing them back. "You can't escape us," they screamed in unison, their voices blending into a maddening roar. But the cauldron of light between us was rising, expanding, filling the space with a vibrant energy that felt alive. I couldn't allow myself to second-guess. This was our moment. "Let's do this." I rallied, and we focused all our energy on breaking free. The symbols glowed brilliantly and the tree erupted with blinding light, forming a barrier against the shadows. The oppressive grip of darkness loosened, and the shadow figures howled in anger. "Retreat!" they screeched, thrashing wildly as they were pushed back beyond the perimeter of the tree. Then I discovered something troubling. From the depths of the shadows, a cold realization danced through my thoughts. I had seen the child again, still standing at the edge of the clearing, begging me with those lost eyes, the figure trapped in the shadows. With newfound clarity, I understood the significance of the child's presence. It was not merely a trick, but a soul tormented and trapped like us. "Lily," I shouted, a sense of urgency flooding my veins. "That child, it's suffering. We need to help it." "What?" she gasped, horrified. "Are you crazy? We can't get near it." As if in response, the child let out a heart-wrenching cry that echoed painfully through the clearing, ricocheting off the bark of the tree and breaking through the pulsating light. The shadows shrieked louder, their fury returning with vengeance. "Stay away. Just accept your fate. Someone has to do something," I said, my breath hitching in my throat. "I can't leave them. Don't you get it? It's a trick. They want to take you too." But every fiber in me urged me to rescue the child, the innocent trapped in their grasp. The momentary stillness around the tree shifted as the shadow figures surged back forward, their claws outstretched, hungry for our essence. The glowing light was flickering, and I knew we had only seconds to act before everything was engulfed in darkness again. "Run. Let's go back." Lily pulled me away, desperation painting her face as the shadows began to inch closer. But I wouldn't move. I couldn't abandon what might be a lost soul. "And no, I can't," I said firmly. My feet felt cemented, rooted to the ground. The shadows were nearing now, but so too was the glow that pulsed from the ancient tree. I'll distract them. I'll guide the child back if I can. Are you insane? She screamed, but I could feel the warmth of the tree surging through me, channeling strength into my very bones. Trust me. I'll be right back, I shouted, taking a step forward. The shadows hissed, lunging at me, but I focused on the child, my heart pounding with fierce determination. Help me, the child's voice rang out, breaking through the cacophony of the shadow's screams. I'm scared. I swallowed hard, shaking off the fear that threatened to consume me. I'm coming, I cried out, pushing my way through the air thick with darkness. The shadows clawed at me, but I felt the energy from the tree still thrumming in my veins. Stay back, I yelled at the shadows, forcing them to retreat just a step. And then, slowly reframing my thoughts, I began to channel that energy toward the child. I could feel a connection growing, a thread binding us. You're not alone. The child lifted its head, eyes gleaming in desperation, and then something shifted. The shadows faltered briefly, hesitating as the pull of the light began to reach for them, illuminating the darkness. I could see the child clearer now. Its features were familiar, a mirror of my own, reflecting a younger version of myself. I won't let them keep you, I shouted, lunging forward, sprinting through the darkness, the shadows roaring with rage. As I reached the edge where the child waited, something unexpected happened. The shadows recoiled, their forms blurring and fading as if the light truly threatened them. But you belong to the darkness, they cried out, writhing under the shimmering glow. No, I shouted defiantly, grabbing the child's hand. We will find our way together. And as I pulled the child into the light, the shadows shrieked, their influence weakening, the darkness retreating little by little. Can you feel the warmth? I thought as we reached the safety of the tree. Suddenly, a fierce wind whipped through the clearing, laden with whispers of rage. You think you can run? The shadows roared, fury trembling within their voices, but I didn't look back. Together, we stepped into the radiance, wrapping around us like a protective blanket. For a fleeting moment, it felt like freedom. But even as we broke into the warm embrace of light, I couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows wouldn't let go that easily. Their haunting whispers still echoed in my mind, a persistent reminder of the darkness lurking beyond our shelter. Now what? I panted, heart racing, feeling the child's hand slip into mine. Looking down, I saw the familiar face staring up at me, a look of desperate hope sparkling in its deep-set eyes. Please help me find my way home, the child said softly, the innocence of its voice chilling me to the bone. We could stay safe in the light, I thought, but I knew the shadows would always be lurking, waiting for a moment of weakness. I looked at Lily and she nodded, determination mixed with fear. We were in this together, we had to be. Let's go, I said, and we stepped further into the clearing, closer to the unknown that lay ahead. The darkness still hung around its edges, ready to clutch at our heels, but this time it felt different. We had the light on our side. I could feel the shadows retreating slightly, hissing but less confident now. You can't escape our grasp. We'll always be waiting, they whispered with venom, but we pressed on. Whatever happens, we stick together, I reminded both Lily and the child, and we formed a circle, a united front. The flickering light seemed to pulse stronger as our resolve hardened. With each step forward, I could feel the warmth strengthen, guiding us as if it knew the path we needed to take. We had faced the darkness and emerged. This time we would keep going. But in the back of my mind, I knew the shadows weren't fully gone. The dread clawed at my chest, whispering of retaliations and hauntings yet to come. Would we have enough strength to truly overcome? The dense trees began to thin out, revealing a glimmer of light ahead, a path that seemed to beckon us with soft whispers of hope. That way, Lily pointed, and in that moment, I could hear the excitement in her voice, overriding the lingering fear. As we approached, the brightness enveloped us in a golden glow, offering a glimpse of safety. Yet, the shadows thrashed against the barrier, growing. Furious with each step we took toward the light. Keep moving, I urged, feeling the intensity of their anger pushing me forward. Each second felt stretched, filled with an urgency that surged through me. Just as we stepped into the radiance, I heard a loud scream behind us. A final cry from the shadows that shook the ground beneath our feet. You can't escape your fate. I turned my head just briefly, and the sickening sight of the shadow figures looming over me chilled my blood, their forms melting into the darkness behind us. But with a deep breath, I focused on the warmth surrounding us. The light enveloped us completely, removing the chains of the shadow's torment. It felt almost soothing, like a gentle wave washing over me. What awaited us on the other side was still unknown, but together we could face anything. The darkness would still be there, lurking and waiting, but I wouldn't forget that our light was stronger, and as we stepped fully into the brightness, I felt the shadows recede behind, weaker and less menacing than before. For now we had won. But would this light keep us safe? Would it be enough to disarm the darkness that would always linger at the edges of my thoughts? I knew our journey was far from over, and as the light embraced us, I was more determined than ever to face whatever was to come. I would protect the child, protect Lily, and never succumb to the whispers of the shadows again. The fight wasn't just for survival, it was for one last shred of hope for the child, for myself, and for Lily. The brightness washed over us, but it did not come without a cost. I could feel the shadows stirring, their whispers barely audible but packed with rage and vengeance. "This isn't over," they howled, their voices melding into a cacophony of despair that echoed through my mind. As we stepped deeper into the light, everything shifted. The ground beneath us was no longer the soft earth of the forest but a solid stone path that glittered faintly, almost like it was alive. Strange symbols lined the edges, similar to those on the trees we had just left behind. But instead of comfort, an unsettling feeling crept in. What if this isn't real? I thought, glancing at Lily. I could see a flicker of doubt in her eyes, a reflection of my own anxiety. And as we continued, the air around us turned thick and heavy, pressing in as if the light was just an illusion, masking a trap we couldn't yet see. "Do you feel that?" I whispered, fear threading through my voice. "It's like the air is watching us." "Yeah," Lily replied, her eyes darting around. "This place feels strange. Like it's waiting for something." At that moment, I noticed the trees around us had transformed, no longer merely dark shapes. They towered ominously over our path, their branches twisting into grotesque formations as if they were alive, sneering down at us. It felt like each twist and curve was a cautious warning, the way they loomed over us signaling danger that was just beyond our sight. "Let's keep moving," I urged, a knot tightening in my stomach. "If we don't, we might get stuck here." But just as we turned to walk, the shadows surged, breaking through the light with a sudden force that knocked me to the ground. My heart raced as I scrambled back to my feet, a surge of protectiveness flooding me for the child beside me. "Stay close," I shouted, grabbing the child's hand tightly, almost lifting them off the ground to shield them. At first, the shadows hesitated at the boundary of the light, but then the darkness began to morph, twisting into monstrous visages that reached out hungrily. They called to us with voices both sweet and sinister, tempting me with promises of comfort and warmth that sent chills down my spine. "We will save you," they whispered, their tones seductive yet menacing. "You don't have to fight anymore. Just let go." "No," I yelled, and the sound of my voice echoed back, reverberating through the chilling atmosphere. I could feel the child shivering beside me, the fear palpable, and I knew I had to act. "Lily, we have to stand together," I urged, squeezing the child's hand tighter and glancing at my friend. But as I looked over, I saw Lily's eyes are glazed, as if she were entranced by the shadows. "Lily," I cried again. "Don't listen." She shook her head as if waking from a dream. I was just... Her voice trailed off, panic sharpening her features as she pushed against the seduction of the shadows. I pulled them both closer, determined to fortify our bond. "If we hold on, they can't take us," I shouted, trying to rally us against the encroaching darkness. "We must believe that we are stronger than this." With a fierce determination, I pressed forward, dragging Lily and the child along the path, but every step felt heavier as if the very ground was trying to sink us back into the abyss. The shadows throbbed and swelled, inching closer, their whispers turning to enraged roars. "Why do you fight?" they screeched, a discordant harmony that scrambled my thoughts. "You cannot escape what you truly are. You belong to us." The weight of their words bore down on me, testing my resolve. I wanted to scream back, to argue that I was different, but fear clawed at my throat. "Just keep going," I shouted, heart racing, dragging them toward a glimmer of light that now seemed distant. I could feel the air shivering with a sense of disquiet, echoing the intentions of the shadows. It was all a game to them, a challenge of wills to see if we would bend or break. Ahead, the path seemed more turbulent, jagged stones jutting out like fangs ready to attack. Each step came with uncertainty, my shoes slipping over the uneven ground, and as I glanced back, I saw the shadows slithering closer, their forms coiling like smoke creeping into corners. The symbols on the stones beneath us glowed faintly, casting a ghostly illumination that offered nothing but false comfort. "What do we do?" Lily cried out, her voice shaking as she stumbled slightly. "Just trust me," I shouted back, competitive spirit rising as I focused on the shimmering path. If the tree had given us strength before, perhaps there was something in these marks too. I knelt quickly, brushing my fingers over one of the glowing symbols. As I concentrated, the symbol pulsed under my touch, sending a jolt of power through me that radiated outwards, enveloping us in a protective aura. I felt a wave of warmth wash over us, pushing the shadows back for a moment, but their fury came surging once again, a relentless assault that ignited fire inside their darkness. "Keep it up," Lily yelled, placing her palm over mine. The warmth from her hand surged alongside the energy from the symbols, creating a bright sphere that pushed fiercely against the creeping shadows. But even as we fought, the darkness was adapting, morphing into a better version of itself, wrapping itself around the light. Distraction seeped like poison into our minds. Horrific visions of all we feared, memories of regret, flashing images of lost moments tugging at both of us. I could feel our surroundings shifting, distorting, reality bending as the shadows closed in, their shapes menacing and relentless. They echoed our fears and whispered terrible things that twisted my stomach and made my skin crawl. Join us or perish in this fight. With each breath, the fear tightened its grip over me. I closed my eyes tightly, calling forth any strength I had left. "No!" I shouted, hoping to drown out their dark serenades. Suddenly, the child beside me gasped, eyes wide with terror. "They're coming for me," they cried, tears spilling over. The chill in my spine sharpened at the words, making my heart drop. "No, you're safe with us," I promised desperately, gripping their hand tightly. "We'll find a way. Just stay with me." But as I spoke, I felt a cold breeze roll through the clearing, rolling off the shadows like a wave. It twisted around us, pulling at my clothes, wrapping around us like hands trying to drag us back toward a gaping maw of darkness. Lily and I braced ourselves against the pull, and I yelled, "We have to keep pushing forward. We will escape them." "Yeah," Lily echoed weakly, but her voice trembled. The shadows licked at our heels. One seemed to break off and charge forward, a demonic creature shaped like the child we had just saved, a grotesque mimicry of innocent fear that sent shivers down my spine. "Help me!" it cried out in that same haunting voice, filling my heart with dread. I felt the grip of reality twisting, breaking apart as I realized the child at my side was terrified too. "No!" I shouted at the dark version. "This isn't real. Come back!" it wailed, its voice tinged with sorrow that wasn't just an illusion, but a chord struck deep within my heart. The shadows began to close in tighter, gathering their strength, bringing forth grinning faces that mocked our desperation, each sneer masked in darkness. "Time to decide. Will you join the light or become part of us?" My breath came in ragged gasps. I wanted to turn and run, but all I could do was stand there, frozen in place as helplessness began to seep into my bones. Each second felt like eternity. The pressure around us grew heavier, suffocating, and then I felt it, an unexplainable warmth rising inside me. "Fight it!" I yelled with a ferocity I didn't know I had, pulling Lily and the child closer. "We can still overcome this." Suddenly, the symbols on the ground flared, and an earthquake of brilliance erupted, blasting heat through my body. The shadows recoiled as the light burst forth fiercely, pushing them back. This was our chance. I felt the pulse of raw energy surging, intertwining with my fear, urging me to release it. "Now, together," I coaxed, feeling the shadows grow weaker with every ounce of hope I harnessed. With a collective shout, we stepped firmly into the light as it erupted around us, rising like a shield that swallowed the darkness whole. There was a hum of power, a vibration that coursed through our feet. The shadows screeched in agony, their horrible faces twisting as they shrank back into a thin veil of black mist. I could feel the light washing over us, absorbing the despair, chipping away at the grasp of the shadows that had haunted us. But even as we reveled in this moment of triumph, a flicker of darkness lingered at the edges of our vision, always watching, always waiting. Everything felt fragile, like a spider's web torn between two worlds, and I knew the battle was far from over. With the child and Lily at my side, I forged ahead, keeping our small circle strong, knowing that the shadows would return. But for now, we were free, and whatever lay ahead, I would face it all with them. "We can make it," I whispered, determination flooding my voice as we ventured deeper into the light ahead, ready for whatever haunting revelations awaited us beyond this moment, daring to confront the menace that would chase us until the end. Yet even as I stepped forward, I felt the shadows shifting behind me, the whispers crawling in my mind. Silence may prevail, but I knew their presence would always linger, just beneath the surface, watching, waiting, seeking any crack in our unity. And deep within my heart, I made a promise to myself. I would never give in. Together we would remain strong, stepping into the unknown with courage, ready to confront the darkness that would always threaten to consume us, even in the brightest moments. Together, our formation tight and supported by our collective heartbeats echoing in perfect rhythm. The air felt thick, almost electric as we stepped into the light that pulsated around us. Each step seemed like a declaration, an affirmation of our defiance against the shadows creeping just behind that barrier. But the deeper we walked, the more fraying threads of darkness seeped through, curling around the edges of the light like smoke winding around a flame. I could hear their soft, mocking laughter, sounding like a haunting mirage that beckoned from just out of sight. The shadows were no longer merely whispers. They were voices palpable, forming a web of confusion that tugged at my mind. "Why do you fight alone?" one voice echoed, a low hiss that made my skin prick with unease. It felt as if it was drifting from all directions, wrapping around us like a predator stalking its prey. "The only way to survive is to join us. We are so much stronger than the light. You know this." I shook my head, a chill creeping down my spine. "Stop it," I yelled back, frustration and fear blending into one. Each taunt felt like a stab, aimed directly at my core. The child beside me squeezed my hand, their grip tight, terror evident in their wide eyes. Suddenly the light flickered. My heart dropped as shadows shifted and writhed, almost like they were being pulled by an unseen force. The very ground trembled beneath our feet, and the air began to crackle like a tense storm about to erupt. Without warning, the radiant light dimmed, casting us into a wave of penumbral darkness. "No, not now," I shouted, but panic clawed at my throat, making it hard to breathe. I looked around wildly, the previously reassuring glow having faded into a muted gray. The gnarled branches of the now menacing trees stretched out toward us, curling into grotesque shapes, like claws ready to ensnare us once more. Just then, a piercing wail erupted from behind us, slicing through the thick silence. It was a sound laden with anguish, filled with cries that felt all too familiar, reverberating through my bones. I turned, seeing shadowy figures emerging from the murky surroundings, prowling toward us with a sinister grace. "Do you remember?" One shadow cooed, its voice a soft temptation. "You thought you could escape us. We are part of you. We are your deepest fears." The shadows began playing tricks on my mind, morphed into shapes and faces of people I once knew, of moments I thought long buried. I saw fleeting images of loved ones lost, faces twisted in eternal suffering. The memories churned, becoming a dark tide tugging at my resolve, and I could feel Lily's breath hitch beside me. "Stay strong," I urged, my voice cracking under the strain, trying to tear us away from the suffocating despair threatening to envelop us. "Don't listen to them." As I clutched the child's hand tightly, I focused on the reassuring pulse of the light that flickered inside me, desperate to hold onto it as shadowy figures rushed closer. Their forms twisted and elongating into monstrous configurations, eyes like smoldering coals piercing through the dimness. "Leave us alone," Lily screamed, the words an anthem pushing against the shadows. It seemed to give us strength, and for a moment, I could see the shadows waver, flickering around the edges as though unsure of their attack. But they quickly adapted. They lunged forward, drowning out our courage with despairing laughter that threatened to crush my spirit. Each cackle dripped with malice echoing in my head, wrapping around my thoughts like a noose. "Come back to us. You cannot run from the reality of who you are. We will always find you." The weight of those words pulled at me, tugging me toward the shadows. Images of my darkest regrets flooded my vision, things I had done, moments I had let slip away. The shadows seemed to feed off my guilt, growing stronger, bolder in their pursuit of breaking me. I felt like panic was shutting down everything around me, clamping down tighter and tighter. "Focus," I shouted again, desperate. "We have to remember what we came for." But my words felt small against the rising tide of darkness. I could feel the warmth of the child's hand beginning to fade as fear took root. The surroundings shifted again. A door-like shadow emerged behind me, framing the darkness like an ominous gathering storm. Whispers flowed through the air, seductive promises curling around my thoughts. "This way. We'll take you home. Just give in and we will ease your burden." Images flashed first. Comfort, warmth, memories of times when I felt completely safe. I almost stepped forward, my body betraying my mind. But as I looked back at my companions, all I could see were their terrified faces, lips trembling and eyes full of fear. "No, I won't leave you," I screamed, forcing myself to turn back. It felt like every ounce of strength was being tested as I strove to resist. But then a figure emerged from the shadows, a tall, gaunt shape that glided forward. It wore a mask, a sinister grin stretching wide, revealing rows of jagged teeth that glinted in the fading light. Its eyes burned like fire, hungry and cold, consuming everything in their path. I froze, heart racing as I realized the shadow was not mere smoke. No, this one was different. A sentinel of despair, a powerful guardian of the darkness threatening to consume us. "Do you want to see what happens?" It hissed, voice smooth yet penetrating. The ground around me felt like it was shifting, preparing for something dreadful. "Let us show you how truly helpless you are." Suddenly, images burst in my mind like popcorn going off in a microwave. I was flooded with visions of failure, mirrors reflecting the worst parts of myself. I saw every moment where I had stood still and let the shadows win, where I had let pain fester instead of confronting it. "Stop," I yelled, shaking my head vehemently. "You're wrong. I can fight." But the sentinel just laughed, its voice a chilling echo that rolled like thunder around us. "Fight? Against what? Your own self? Will you still claim to be strong when you've seen the truth?" A flash of unbearable dread swelled in me, but I dug deeper. I felt the warmth of the light, a soft glimmer pushing against the icy grip of the shadows. "We're not alone," I reminded myself, looking into Lily's eyes, and then at the child who clung desperately to my side. "Together we are stronger." With that thought, I closed my eyes to block out the terrible visions. I felt the pulse of the light beneath my skin, surging within me like a heartbeat, and summoned every ounce of courage left. "I won't be afraid," I cried, standing tall as the shadows rushed forward, desperate to engulf me once more. I reached out, channeling the radiance into a blinding blast that illuminated the depth of this dark realm. The light surged outward, radiating warmth, pushing against the boundaries of the fear threatening to crush us. It illuminated the faces of the shadows, revealing not just their grotesque forms but also the utter anguish within them. Their cries were deafening, clawing at my insides, but I clung tightly to the warmth, refusing to submit. "Go back," I shouted into the chaos, forcing the light forward and watching as it pushed the shadows back. The sentinel reeled, a grotesque figure of essence flickering in and out of existence. "You will pay for this defiance," it warned, voice rumbling like distant thunder. "You cannot escape this reality forever. We will find you again and again." And despite its words, despite the chill that washed through me, I felt a flicker of hope sparkling within. The light was growing stronger around us, both from within and surrounding us, forming a protective barrier as the shadows struggled to reclaim their hold. "I will never give in," I declared, defiance underpinning the certainty of my voice. The light exploded in a burst of strength, consuming the darkness around us, and for the first time, I could see gaps reforming in the torrent of shadows, space unfolding beneath the shadows' surge. "Now," I urged, pulling Lily and the child along as we dashed forward, making our way through the burden of darkness. Every step was a struggle, pushing against the dread that clung relentlessly, but I felt the light pulsing with every heartbeat, urging me on. As we broke through, emerging into a new realm of overwhelming brightness, a sweet sensation washed over me. But I could not shake the feeling of the shadows tugging at the edges of my being, always watching, always waiting for the right moment to strike. The shadows still whispered lies, beckoning me to look back, to give in to a fear that was more consuming than I could fathom. Yet, amidst the brightness, I held fast to the warmth of my companions, the innocent child representative of all that was pure. The darkness may have felt eternal, but I understood deep down that I was capable of overcoming, capable of forging pathways through fears that thrived on despair. And though the shadows were never fully gone, the strength we built stood tall against the creeping dread. Together, we would face whatever came next, resisting the pull of darkness and clinging to the light that unified us against everything terrifying. "Keep moving," I whispered to them, drawing a breath of courage as I prepared for whatever else the other side of this journey held. We would step into the unknown together, ready to confront whatever lay ahead, determined to chase away the shadows that would always contend for our souls. As we braved the unknown, the air around us thickened, nearly suffocating. It was a silence that felt wrong, heavy like a blanket draped over our shoulders. Each step I took echoed unnaturally, bouncing back like a taunt. The brightness around us flickered, and with each pulse, I swore I could feel the shadows clawing back, desperate to reclaim us. "Stay close, don't let go of each other," I urged, glancing back at Lily and the child, both of their faces frozen in a mask of fear. We pressed on, but the chill in the air seeped deeper, sending tremors through my bones. Just ahead, a shadow lingered, moving faster than our eyes could track. I caught a glimpse, a fleeting silhouette shaped like a tall figure with elongated limbs, its face distorted and grotesque. It flitted between the shadows, disappearing and reappearing as if taunting us to follow, showcasing a sickening dance that pulled at my curiosity. "Do you see that?" I asked, voice barely above a whisper. They both nodded, the fear tangible between us. There was something unnerving about its movements, seductive and terrifying, as though it was beckoning us closer with a sinister charm. Suddenly, the figure stopped and pointed towards the ground, a dark patch that seemed to pulse beneath our feet. A cold sweat broke out on my brow as the ground shifted, swirling like an ominous whirlpool. I could hear something beneath it, a low growl that rumbled, deep and guttural, threatening to consume everything within reach. "Don't look," I shouted, feeling the pull of the darkness. I turned my back to it, but even that felt like a mistake. The shadows wrapped around me, slithering in like quicksand, trying to pull me back. Desperation coursed through my veins as I dug my heels in, fighting against the lethargy they spread. The child began to whimper, and I felt it like a dagger to my chest. "We have to move," I urged, but the ground beneath us roared louder, rising with a cry of fury that sent vibrations through the air. Without warning, something shouted from the depths of the shadows, a voice that could chill even the strongest of hearts. "You cannot escape. You are in our domain now." A surge of energy swept through the air, and the surrounding darkness became lifelike, creeping ever closer, reaching towards us with twisted, claw-like fingers. I felt the dread in my chest swell, a sick sense of hopelessness blanketing my heart. "I won't let them take us," I cried, feeling the warmth of the light flickering just behind my heart. I reached out, grounding myself in its memory, forcing it to shine brighter. Together. Push against it. But the shadows were ready, sweeping in like a tide. They wrapped around us, pulling tighter as the laughter became a cacophony, echoing in my head, distorting every thought. Images of my past played out in fragments, whispers from long ago. Then, from the depths, I saw faces emerge, people I recognized, their features twisted into masks of despair, mouths warped in mournful cries. "Help us! Help me!" "No!" I shouted, clutching the child tighter, faced with the terrible dilemma of fighting or succumbing. "They're not real." Panic gripped me, threatening to send me spiraling into their endless sorrow. "Stop! You're lying!" Lily screamed, shaking. I had never heard that kind of fear in her voice, and it pierced me deeper than the looming dread around us. The shadows fell silent for just a moment, and in that stillness, I felt the power of the dark specter looming over us, waiting, lurking. It was an uneasy pause that felt heavy, as if the air had grown thick with despair. My heart hammered in my chest, uncertainty knotting my stomach. In that silence came a low drumbeat that thrummed, sending vibrations through the ground. It reached up into my chest, a promise of something dreadful. A sudden flash ignited like lightning, illuminating the dark with the silhouette of a monstrous figure rising from the ground. Its eyes glowed with an infernal light that pulsed rhythmically, and I realized it was moving toward us, a predator eager to feast on our fear. A wave of panic crashed over me as it slithered forward, pushing the shadows aside like a deity emerging from a dark abyss. Its form stretched taller than any tree, limbs like twisted branches, and its mouth gaped wider than I could comprehend, lined with teeth that glistened slickly. "Join me," it whispered in a voice that caressed my ears with poison. "You will never find peace while you fight. Submit and endure eternity." The voice wrapped around my thoughts, sinking deep into the recesses of my mind, taunting me with enticing promises. "No, you won't take us," I yelled, my breath trembling against the weight of its darkness. "We're not afraid of you." But my voice felt small, impossible to erase the looming presence. Each beat of my heart synchronized with the dark deity's pulse. Shadows writhed at our feet, as if they were smoke gathering to join their master. "Coward," it hissed, a sharp edge hidden beneath the soft cadence. "You think you can stand against me? The faces you see are your past, your failures. They will haunt you forever." With every taunt, the faces of those dear to me grew clearer around the fiend, their looks of agony pressing me. I felt my resolve waning. The sorrow in their eyes fed into my fear. The backstories clawing at me like tendrils of despair that struck deep. "Trust me," I shouted, trying to fight my own doubts. "We can't give in." The child beside me trembled, their grip weaker, the fear shining brightly in their eyes. I could sense the shadows crawling closer, inching forward with malicious intent, trying to twist our deep-rooted fears into grotesque mirrors. Desperately, I looked around, searching for something, anything to help ground us. Then I remembered the symbols beneath our feet, the design etched into the stone. If I could just reach them, maybe they could grant us safety. Follow me, I urged, adrenaline coursing through my veins as I pulled Lily and the child, darting toward the flickering light barely visible through the creep of darkness. We stumbled forward, but a heavy wind howled back at us, shattering illusions of safety around us. Voices swelled again, this time swirling in a chaotic frenzy. You will not leave. Turn back, it's your fate to suffer. Shadows gripped my ankles as if they wanted to hold us back, whispering threats that wrapped around my mind like a noose. But clinging to hope and determination, I pushed forward, and when we reached the nearest symbol, I dropped to my knees, my palms grazing its surface. A surge of power raced through me, a warmth that illuminated the darkness held only by uniformity of despair. The symbols flared brightly, bursting through fog and ice, wrapping us in a cocoon of light as the shadows recoiled, twisting backward in a desperate panic. Let it flow, I shouted, feeling the energy shift, rise through me like a waterfall cascading over stones, carving paths through fear and sorrow. Lily and the child knelt beside me, their hands pressed against the symbol, and for a moment, I could feel our hearts sinking in a rhythm, pulsing strength. The shadows writhed, restless, their cries melding into a storm of agony, a warning that danced with fury and desperation. You cannot contain us. We were here before you. As the light expanded, I could sense the shadows beginning to splinter, breaking apart, shrinking, wavering against the sheer brilliance surrounding us. I pushed my fear aside and called back the memories of light, focusing on every moment that had kept me warm when the world felt dark. Like a dam breaking, the light surged forth, shoving against the shadows gathering around us, forcing them back with every ounce of warmth it had. But as the shadows shrieked, a sinister calm fell over the area. The figure began to dissolve, fading like smoke, but its voice still echoed in the air, a reminder of the ever-looming darkness. This is not over. We will always wait for you. As I pressed forward, I could feel the desperation of their whispers clawing at threads of hope. I realized then that this moment was just a battle in a long war, where shadows always lurked nearby, chocolates fading behind the faintest veil of darkness. We were escaping, yes, but every step had to be taken with caution, knowing that one wrong turn could bring us back into shadows that hungered for our surrender. But with every footfall, newfound strength coursed through me, reminding me that we could endure. What we had was powerful, and even as the dark remained unbroken, we were equipped to resist. That thought surged with purpose as we moved forward. The path stretched onward, and deep in my chest, I knew this journey was far from over. Every step seemed to echo into the abyss, raising the hairs on the back of my neck. As we ventured deeper, the air grew thick and heavy, swirling around us like a fog that seeped into my very soul. I can't see anything, Lily cried out, her voice trembling. I glanced back, finding only shadows dancing behind us, merging and twisting in an unsettling way. The faint light we had brought with us felt frail in comparison to the darkness surrounding us. I could hear faint whispers, words I couldn't catch, but they felt like they were clawing at my ears, trying to seep into my head. Just keep moving, I urged, forcing the words out despite the chill that crawled up my spine. I looked ahead, and the path took a sharp turn, leading down a slope that disappeared into further darkness. Sticking closer together, we stepped carefully, uncertain of what lay beyond that next horizon. As we reached the bottom, I noticed an eerie glow spilling behind a thick cluster of trees. Heart racing, I felt a desperate mixture of hope and dread. What is that? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I don't want to know, the child trembled, clenching my hand tighter. Igniting a flicker of courage, I stepped forward, urging my companions to follow. The trees whispered their secrets as we approached, their branches swaying like skeletal fingers, beckoning us to come closer. The glow pulsed rhythmically, casting strange shadows that looked like nightmarish creatures skirting away from our presence. With trepidation, I stepped into the clearing. What I saw twisted my stomach into knots. Glittering lights hung in the air like fireflies, but they were trapped, swirling wildly in a kind of cage made of shadows. The sight shattered my resolve. This is wrong, I muttered, feeling the light in my chest flicker anxiously. Suddenly, the whimsical glow turned dark. The fireflies' light changed from soft golden hues to a sickly green, and the whispers escalated into frantic, panicking screeches. No. What is happening? Lily shrieked, her voice echoing against the shadows gathering around us. The lights dimmed as if stolen by unseen hands, retreating into the black that surrounded us. And then came the laugh, low and chilling, reverberating through the trees. You should have left while you could. a voice hissed, slithering through the air and wrapping around me. My heart raced as I swung around, searching for the source of that sinister tone. Was it the shadow speaking? Or even worse, was it a figure hidden among the trees, watching and waiting? I felt a cool breeze brewing, chilling my skin. An overwhelming sense of dread crept over me. They were going to trap us here, I just knew it. Then, just as the laughter faded, a figure stepped out from behind a twisted trunk. It was taller than any person I'd seen, with limbs stretched unnaturally and eyes that glowed a ghastly white. The creature's skin appeared slick and shadowy, glimmering like oil under the dim light. My stomach churned and the air thickened with anxiety. Join the forgotten, it loomed closer, each word dripping with malice. You will never escape this fate. I felt every bit of warmth dissipate, and the light within me flickered dangerously. We are not forgotten. I shouted with strength I didn't feel. But the creature only smiled wider, its mouth stretching impossibly, revealing rows of jagged teeth that dripped with darkness. You think you are strong enough to resist? You think you can save yourself? The child gasped, and I felt urgency swell in my chest. We can do this. We are stronger together. With that, I raised my arms toward the shining symbol, hoping to draw power from it. But the darkness began to seep in, stretching past the boundaries I had felt earlier. Shadows twisted around my ankles, and I felt the grip of despair tightening once more. The shadows coiled up and I fought back, but they clung fiercely to me. I could feel the weight of every regret and every fear I'd ever had pressing down, transforming my resolve into doubt. No, I thought desperately. This isn't happening. Suddenly, a sound pierced the air, a sharp crack like thunder. I looked up just in time to see a flash of lightning crack through the trees, momentarily illuminating the area. In that heartbeat of brightness, I caught sight of faces among the shadows, more than just memories. They were lost souls, eyes filled with anguish, reaching out to me, trapped as the being edged closer. "Help us!" they wailed, ghostly voices mixing with the laughter of the creature. "You cannot escape. We want peace. We want to be free." I felt a chill grip my heart. It was overwhelming. The shadows around them twisted and expanded, dark tendrils stretching to reach me, to snatch away my light. "Don't listen," I shouted, forcing myself to breathe. "This is a trap." With each heartbeat, I felt my strength flagging. The child's hand felt fragile in mine, and Lily's face was frozen in terror. In that moment, I made a choice, fueled by sheer survival. Together, we resist. I yelled, gritting my teeth as waves of despair surged against us. The pulse within me ignited, sending warmth cascading through my veins once more. I focused on the light, picturing it flowing from my heart, pouring into my palms. I felt it growing, stronger than before, surging like molten lava as I clenched my fists. "Push it back," I yelled, lifting my hands high as the dark figure moved closer. The smile on its face faltered just a fraction, and for a moment, fear crossed its features. But the shadows laughed, mocking me. "It's too late. You belong to us." The presence of the creature loomed directly in front of me, and the temperature dipped painfully cold, leaving an imprint of absolute terror in my heart. I thrust my hands out, and light erupted from me, illuminating the darkness with a fierce glow. The air shimmered as I felt the light expand, flushing the shadows backward, but an icy wind rushed to counter me, shrieking that I would perish in my attempt. I could sense the shadows retreating, but not for long. The darkness had grown stronger, and I sensed its anger rising like smoke from a dying fire. "Hold on to each other," I warned, feeling the edges of my strength beginning to snap. I fought against the lingering shadows, unwilling to lose control again. But as I pushed against their grasp, I felt my footing slip, shadows crawling up my legs and clawing for my heart. Desperation clawed at my mind. The faces around me twisted into the most agonizing expressions of defeat. "Help! Help us!" they cried, and the sound was like nails dragging across my skin. "Stay with me," I roared, but in my heart I questioned everything. Would I be able to save anyone? Would we be devoured by the dark? Just as doubt flickered into my heart, something shifted within the shadows. A ripple of chaos surged, and the creature bared its teeth. "Foolish children," it bellowed, its voice booming like thunder. "You will suffer dearly for your stubbornness. It's only a matter of time." The shadows around me danced eagerly, some closing in on the others, dragging them into an inky void where despair was absolute. Then, in one last rush, I felt my power slipping away and the shadows lunged. "No!" I screamed, throwing everything I had left into a radiant sphere of light. I aimed it straight for the heart of the darkness, hoping against hope it would be enough. The light exploded outward in a blinding flash, pushing the shadows and the creature back momentarily. But as the brilliance enveloped the air, I felt the darkness coil tighter around us as if it were preparing to strike back. And as the light faded, I sensed we were not alone anymore. Something new stirred in the void, darker than all we had faced. It writhed among the shadows, waiting, watching, ready to ascend in a grim dance of malevolence that would consume us all. I prepared myself for the onslaught, realizing that even though I fought bravely, the darkest night was still waiting to descend. The shadows always lingered, always whispered. This was a battle in a war that had just begun. But I was not broken yet. With every ounce of courage left, I steeled myself for whatever horror awaited, knowing that the true test of strength was indeed just beginning. I stood there, heart racing, aware that the darkness loomed like a predator sharpening its teeth in anticipation. The shadows writhed, twisting at the edges of my light. Each flicker sent pools of darkness slithering back, but I could feel the weight of despair creeping in again. I clenched my fists, determination surging within me. The creature, eyes glowing with malevolence, took a menacing step forward. You think you can fight against the tide? Look around you. Its voice seeped into my mind, cold and clawing, and I felt guilty images gnaw at my memories. I realized I had to keep my focus. I won't let you win, I shouted, trying to drown out the whispers of doubt. But as I gazed into the shadows, I could see more faces emerge, each one filled with agony and despair. They were trapped souls, endlessly reaching for a hope that seemed to dissolve. Help us, the voices pleaded, echoing as if they were a chilling chorus. I felt tears prick in my eyes. Was I truly helping, or was I about to lead us all into a dark pit? The child beside me trembled, their quiet whimpers fueling my resolve. Stay close, I commanded, pulling them behind me. Yet behind me the tree started to shake. Branches cracked, echoing in the silence. The darkness around us thickened, wrapping like a shroud, as if the forest was coming alive with malevolence. The ground quaked beneath my feet, each tremor a reminder of our precarious existence. And then the shadows gathered, rising up with a zealous hunger. Out of the dark, something massive unfurled, a tendril of shadow snaking toward us, each quivering inch calculated and deliberate. It glistened like brackish water, and I was overwhelmed with the scent of decay, as if something ancient had awoken from a long slumber. My heart raced, the pounding in my ears drowning out the whispers. I won't let it take us, I yelled, raising my hands again, desperate to push back against the encroaching darkness. But the tendril lunged, quick as lightning, wrapping around my legs and pulling me down. Panic surged through me as the ground yanked away, and I screamed as I felt my body collide with the earth. With every second that passed, I felt the shadows fluttering like bats around me, shrieking with excitement as I fought against their hold. Help me, I yelled, looking to Lily and the child, who were still standing fading off their own shadows. Lily's eyes were wide with terror, her breath coming in quick gasps. Desperately, I pulled my leg free from the grasp of darkness and crawled toward them. As I reached for the child, I noticed a deepening chill spreading around us. This wasn't just fear, it felt like something more sinister creeping through my veins. The shadows began to shift, inky forms melting into grotesque shapes, distorting and rearranging like a living nightmare. Can you not see? The dark creature teased, its voice now a sharp hiss. You're all mine. You belong to the night. With those words slicing through my determination, the ground quaked once again, and the tendrils stretching around me shifted like snakes, constricting tighter. Panic surged through me. I could see shadows pulling at Lily, dragging her towards the darkness. Stay together, I yelled, feeling fear clawing at my insides. But that sense of solidarity trembled against the grip of devouring shadows. With every ounce of strength, I pulled Lily back, but the presence of the creature grew and cold laughter rang through the air. You cannot hold what isn't yours, it taunted, darkness coiling over its form. A creature of nightmares twisted further, its eyes gleaming with insatiable hunger. In sheer desperation, I summoned every memory of warmth I could muster. Friends laughing, days with sunlight bright, the feeling of love surrounding me like a veil. I felt the spark flickering again in my chest and let it flow outward, swirling soft light that pushed against the gnashing shadows. No! It shrieked in fury as my light created a small bright shield around us, forcing the darkness to recoil, but shadows still lashed out, snapping and clawing. I gasped, pushing with all my might as the creature's form drifted among the shadows. The faces encircled me, their cries flowing like a tide. "Help us! You can't let them take you." Suddenly, amid their pleading, I caught sight of something glimmering farther in the distance. A brighter beacon, pulsing like a heartbeat against the backdrop of shadows. Hope ignited within me, reigniting my resolve. "Maybe we can break free," I shouted, loud enough for Lily and the child to hear. "Follow me. We can reach that light." With the tendrils tightening around us, I rushed toward the glowing hope, pulling both Lily and the child with me. The shadows hissed, furious at our defiance, snapping like hungry jaws, seeking any shred of weakness between us. Heart pounding and legs heavy, we sprinted as the whispers grew louder, a cacophony of despair clawing at our minds. "You cannot escape your fate," they shrieked, 1,000 voices united in manic glee. But I refused to listen. I channeled all my focus into reaching that beacon of light. Just a little further, the dread clawing at my insides only fueled me. Shadows lashed out, tearing at my clothes, biting at my skin, but I pressed on. Finally, I saw the outline of the glowing form, a massive symbol made of pulsating light, rising like a tree of hope amidst the darkness. It radiated warmth, pushing back the shadows that tried to strangle us. "Almost there," I shouted, feeling the warmth begin to soothe the cold despair flooding my soul. We dove toward the light, and I felt the shadows simmering down, their once sharp edges dulling against the power of the radiance surrounding us. The creature screeched in anger, its limbs thrashing wildly, trying to pull back what it could not possess. The moment we neared the glowing essence, the light exploded outward in a brilliant arch, pushing the shadows far back, forcing the howling tendrils to retreat. I felt as if I had stepped into another realm, welcomed into the warmth that soothed my battered soul. For a brief spell, the world around us erupted into soothing whispers. "You are safe." But there was no time to breathe easy. I sensed the creature's wrath surging, more desperate than before. The shadows rippled, reforming like broken glass, a storm brewing in the distance. "You think a simple light can hold me?" it roared, and then I saw it gather its strength for one last horrifying attack. Before I could react, the darkness surged forward, catching us as the surge of chaos erupted, and I felt coldness swallow the warmth that had started to cradle us, a glimmer of hope. "Stay close," I shouted again as the shadows lunged forward, their insatiable hunger threatening to consume all light as we braced for the return of darkness. As the creature surged ahead, I prepared myself for the fight of a lifetime, knowing that the escape was only the beginning of our battle against the endless shadows. We would face them together or not at all, as the darkness writhed and reached for us once more. My heart pounded in my chest and a cold sweat coated my skin. The creature's furious energy electrified the air, swirling with an unseen force that pressed down on me like a heavy weight. With the shadows closing in again, I could see the fire in the creature's eyes, a promise of pain and despair. The light that had been our salvation flickered, growing dim as if responding to the creature's dark energy. "Stay together," I yelled, trying to hold on to the warmth that was dissipating. Desperation clawed at my throat as I reached for Lily and the child, seeking reassurance in their presence amidst the chaos. Darkness surged and I felt a chill wrap around my legs. The shadows twisted and coiled like a serpent ready to strike, pulling at me, trying to separate us. Their icy grips sunk deep into my skin, causing a sharp pain that made it hard to focus. I fought against the pressing cold, tearing myself free from the grasp that sought to drag me into oblivion. Then I turned to face the shadows creeping closer, their forms shifting into shapes that twisted my stomach with fear. I could see figures from my memories, shadowy echoes of people I loved, their faces contorted in anguish, urging me to join them. "Help us!" their voices cried, mixing with the laughter of the creature, an unsettling melody that felt all too real. This was no ordinary nightmare. This darkness was alive, feeding off my fear, ready to ensnare my soul and drag it into the depths. "No," I shouted defiantly. "I won't give in to you." But the whispers tightened, encroaching on my mind, wrapping around my thoughts like a rope. Amidst the chaos, I caught sight of the pulsing light wavering in the distance, still burning like a beacon, promising sanctuary. "That's our way out," I yelled, and I rushed toward it, spurred by both fear and hope. As I moved, the ground heaved beneath me, the shadows swirling dangerously. The laughter echoed eerily, a chorus of lost souls drowning out my courage. I felt a surge of cold crawl up my spine as I pressed on, dragging Lily and the child with me. "Stay close. Don't look back," I commanded, but I could hear their breath quickening behind me, their fear almost tangible. The shadows hissed and snapped, pushing against my back as if they intended to swallow us whole. Just when I thought the light was within reach, a sharp pain surged through me. A tendril of darkness had found its mark, coiling tightly around my arm. I stumbled, gasping, and felt the icy fingers of dread tighten around my throat. The child screamed, the sound piercing through the pall of fear, urging me to keep going. With every ounce of strength, I yanked my arm free, ripping myself away from the grasp of shadows that wanted to drag me down. I could feel the shadows slowing, the energies battling like two storms colliding. I could sense their hesitation. They feared the light as much as I desired it. Together we can break free. I shouted, rallying my companions even as doubt gnawed at my heart. I would not surrender, we had come too far. The light flickered even brighter, igniting a flicker of hope deep within me. We raced toward it, hearts pounding in our ears like thunder, and I could feel the darkness clawing at my back, desperate to pull us under. I could almost hear it whispering my name, taunting me with promises of safety if I simply gave in. "You belong here with us," it hissed. "You'll never escape. The night is forever." But those whispers only fueled my determination. I focused on the warmth of the light and the feeling of love it exuded, something I had to protect at all costs. As I drew closer, the forest around us seemed to change, the dark trees closing in, their branches resembling twisted hands reaching out to trap us. Every shadow twisted into shapes of fear, each one more grotesque than the last. I saw eyes peering from the blackness, watching, waiting. I imagined countless spirits bound to this dark place, yearning to whisper terror into our hearts. Suddenly, I felt a rush of wind as if the darkness was exhaling, wanting one last chance to snatch us back. With its timing, it unleashed a torrent of shadows that surrounded us like storm clouds. "Lily, the light," I urged, desperation threading my voice. Just as we drew close to the radiance, the shadows leaped forward, their hunger palpable. I pushed through the storm, clutching the child's hand tightly, forcing us forward. I could see the light shimmering, flickering like a fragile flame in an endless night. It was now or never. I yelled with every inch of strength I had left. "We can do this." The moment we broke through the threshold of shadows into the light, I felt an explosion of warmth. Power surged through me, illuminating my spirit and igniting an inner fire. The shadows immediately recoiled, screeching in rage as the light enveloped us, shredding their hold. But the darkness was relentless. Even as we were bathed in bright energy, the creature's furious growl echoed behind us. "You may have escaped for now, but I will find you. You cannot hide from me." With those words clutching tightly in my mind, it became painfully clear we had not won yet. While the light began to settle around us, illuminating the path onward, I still sensed the clawing shadows lurking around the edges, waiting for their moment to strike again. "Keep moving," I yelled, buoyed by a mixture of relief and dread. We ran faster, feet hardly touching the ground, fueled by adrenaline. The forest twisted around us, creating a labyrinth of light and shadow, blurring the line of our reality. I could feel the echo of the creature behind us, lurking, always watching, hungry for a chance to leap into the void between the worlds. Inside the light I felt almost safe, but I knew better. The shadows were gathering strength, stitching together glimpses of the familiar faces I had seen before. Friends, family, all manifesting as specters, faces contorted in anguish. Their fingers crept closer, quivering in the light. "Join us," they beckoned softly. "You are not safe." It was a sweet voice, almost like a lullaby, eerie in its familiarity. Every brush of air that touched my skin felt alive with malice. There was a desperation in their sounds, offering warmth and peace, yet woven in was a chilling reminder of what lay beneath, an icy grip that promised to swallow my essence. Just as I thought we were free, a chilling realization crept over me. The light around us was dimming, flickering like a dying ember. I looked desperately around, searching for what would come next. "Why is it fading?" I gasped, panic rising in my throat. And then I saw it, the shadows recoiling, gathering for one last push, coagulating into a monstrous shape that towered above us. "You cannot escape me," the creature roared, the sound echoing in the stillness. In a moment that felt like eternity, I stood, desperate and shaking, gripping Lily and the child tightly as the monstrous dark form loomed larger, ready to engulf us whole. I held my breath, feeling time stretch as I braced for the next wave of terror. The shadows curled like a storm, their energy surging in a tumultuous wave, promising to snatch us away if we faltered just once. But then something deep in my heart ignited, a fragile spark that began to light our path once more. I looked at Lily and the child, and though fear gripped us, I felt hope begin to bloom. "We will fight," I said firmly, letting determination pulse through me. We are stronger together. With newfound strength, we faced the monstrous creature that had threatened to consume us. It may be relentless, but it had yet to taste our true courage, and together we would wield our light against it, ready to reclaim our fate and shatter the chains of despair binding us to this accursed existence. This battle was far from over, and my resolve would not yield against the shadows that longed to take me. I turned towards the looming darkness with every shred of belief igniting within, ready to shock it back with the brilliance of our unity. I felt the energy swirling around us, a force of determination that seemed to gather strength within our very souls. The creature's growl reverberated through the darkness, shaking the ground beneath our feet. "You're weak," it hissed, the sound slithering around us like smoke. "You'll crumble just like the others." As I pushed my fear down, I could feel a rush of warmth spread through me, a reminder of all I cared about, all the love I had felt. It was like fuel, the light inside sparking to life, igniting a fire that countered the cold that sought to swallow us. Together. I shouted again, looking into the eyes of Lily and the child. "We are stronger. We won't let it win." Just then, the creature lunged forward, shadows stretching menacingly, reaching out to snatch us away. I felt my heart race as the dark tendrils clawed through the air, a whirlwind of chaos speeding towards us. Panic clawed at my throat, but I stood firm, knowing I could not let it take any more from me. "Now!" I cried, drawing on the power of our connection. In that moment, everything became quiet. Time seemed to slow, and I could feel the pulsating light within us. I focused on the light, pouring my heart into it as if it were an extension of myself. With every ounce of willpower, I thrust my hands forward, releasing an explosive wave of radiance that erupted from us like a shooting star. The shadows whipped back violently, shrieking in horror, twisting away from the purity of our combined spirit. The light spread, illuminating every inch of the dark forest around us. I saw bizarre and twisted shapes flicker momentarily, shadows that had become grotesque versions of their former selves. Strange figures with gaunt features screamed in unison, their voices echoing like a haunted choir as they were swallowed by the light. Yet even as the darkness seemed to shrink and falter, the creature screeched louder. "You think this will keep me away?" it growled, gathering itself for a counterattack. In that instant, I could see its form growing larger, taking on a more monstrous shape, a mass of swirling malice and despair. Jagged teeth glinted in the fading light, sharp and ready to pierce flesh, fear mixing with rage that pulsed in the air around us. We were not merely fighting a creature, we were facing a manifestation of my deepest fears, loss, hopelessness, and despair. Each tendril it unleashed now exuded a familiar voice, whispering doubts and the horrors of what I had lost. "Why keep fighting?" the shadow taunted, its voice ringing inside my head. "You know what lies behind you. You can't change your fate." But doubt flickered like a dying ember within me. "No," I shouted defiantly. "This is not my fate. I choose to fight." Lily and the child echoed my determination, their voices filling the space around us. Together, we stood against the tide of darkness, our hearts thundering, fueling the radiance growing between us. I could feel the warmth of their spirit, intertwining with mine in a brilliant tapestry of unity. The shadows roared back, surging forward, dark tendrils snapping in every direction. Just as it felt that they would engulf us, an idea sparked in my mind. A vision of a shield, a barrier of light, strong enough to hold the darkness at bay. "Form a circle," I shouted, realizing that we needed more than just to stand against it. We had to embody the light. "Together we can push it back. Hold hands." With trembling hands, we joined together, our fingers interlocking, creating a circle of defiance against the dark mass that thrust toward us. Each heartbeat synchronized, our breaths mingled in the chilling air, and an electric anticipation crackled between us. As we formed the circle, I could feel the shadows roiling against our bond, thrashing angrily, but we stood strong and the light began to swell around us. Every ounce of confidence, every memory of love, melded into a radiant dome that glimmered brighter as our spirits combined. "Let the light consume it," I commanded, pouring my heart into the connection, reigniting our flames as shadows threatened to break our unity. With our voices rising, we began to chant, a melody of hope resonating against the dark. "We are light. We are love. We are more than darkness." The shadows lashed out, screeching in outrage, but the shield quivered and held steady. The light pulsated like a heartbeat, pushing further at the encroaching darkness. I felt the pressure around us lightening, the shadows gasping as they encountered our defiance. Yet, suddenly, we were struck by a violent wave of shadow, the darkness retaliating with such force that I felt my knees buckle. The creature screamed as tendrils slashed through the dome of light, dragging at the edges, trying to pull us apart. "Stay strong," I yelled, fighting against the encroaching shadows that threatened to tear us from our circle. The echoes of dread whispered insidiously in my ears. "You can't keep it up. You're nothing without the fear." I gritted my teeth, pushing my fears aside. I imagined the warmth of loved ones, the laughter, the memories of joyful moments. I thought of the child beside me, their innocent courage bringing a well of determination up from within me. We fought back, our combined strength igniting a brilliant response. As the darkness pressed harder, we channeled every happy thought, every moment of light that had ever been a part of us. A flash of blinding brilliance erupted from our circle, surging outwards, illuminating the surrounding forest. It was so bright that I could barely keep my eyes open, yet I felt the power surge through us like a tidal wave. "Now push it away," I urged, feeling the energy swell between us. With a united push, we thrust our hands forward, and the light erupted outward, ripping through the shadows like sun rays piercing thick fog. A brilliant shockwave radiated outward, illuminating every dark corner, illuminating the beady eyes of the shadowy figures lurking further out in the trees. The creature howled in agitated fury, its form writhing in pain. "You think this can hold me?" Nonetheless, I could feel the thick despair waning, the shadows swirling into a whirlwind, losing their grasp, unable to withstand the purity of our united resolve. But something deep in my gut nagged at me. The creature was not done yet. I braced myself for another attack. I felt the shift in energy, a heavy pulse moving through the ground toward us. With the ground trembling, I glanced at Lily and the child, and we exchanged a grim determination that reflected in our eyes. "We need to keep going," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "We must finish this." As the resonance of our light clashed with the shadows, I knew we were facing something truly sinister. I held on to hope, knowing that together, we could stave off the darkness threatening to swallow our very existence whole. The creature reformed, taking on a more dreadful shape, laced with furious energies that undulated, coiling around itself like a serpent preparing to strike. Its eyes glared at us with burning maleficence, and I saw within them a burning question. Would we break? Would the shadows finally snatch us back into the abyss? Whatever the answers were, one thing was clear. I was ready to confront whatever came next, prepared to continue fighting against the relentless tide of darkness, for as long as it took. With every beat of my heart, the ground trembled and an ominous chill filled the air around us. The creature's growl rumbled again, a low, menacing sound that resonated deep within my bones, shaking my resolve. "You are nothing but candles in the dark," it hissed, the voice echoing from every shadow, relentless and haunting. I felt my breath hitch in my throat as darkness clawed closer, curling around our feet like smoke, attempting to coil around my ankles. I could almost feel the cold touch brushing against my skin, whispering terrible things that made my heart race. "You can't escape me, I will always be here waiting." The shadows reared back momentarily, preparing for another assault, and I knew we had to be prepared, our focus locked tight on the light flowing between us. "Don't let it in," I whispered urgently to Lily and the child, casting a sideways glance at them. Their faces were drawn, yet determination gleamed in their eyes, reflecting my own resolve. "I can feel it," I continued, "it's trying to make us doubt ourselves. We have to hold on." I took a deep breath, grounding myself in the warmth of our connection, as if pulling strength from every joyful memory I held. The shadows flinched, swirling uncertainly, sensing our unity. But fear dug its claws into my mind, and doubts flared back like angry embers. What if this wasn't enough? What if the creature broke through, snatching the light from us and plunging us into eternal darkness? I pictured the figures I had seen earlier, faces contorted in sorrow, urging me to join them. A shiver ran down my spine as the echoes clawed at my sanity, whispering that the end was near. Just then there was a sharp crack, loud enough to snap me back to reality. The shadows fractured, reshaping as the creature shrieked in rage. "You think you can defy me forever?" Behind its grotesque form, I saw what resembled a gaping maw, filled with teeth that shimmered like glass, each one ready to tear into flesh. Screaming, it lunged at us, a wave of wrath tumbling toward our small circle, dark tendrils stretching hungrily through the air. "No!" I screamed instinctively, raising my hands to push against the force, my heart pounding, adrenaline surging through me like a storm. In that moment, everything felt like slow motion. I could see the dark energy swirling, tendrils reaching out to snatch us, to pull us into the endless night. I could feel my heart racing faster, echoing in my ears as I strained against the onslaught. "Focus on the light," I shouted, desperation gripping my throat. The memories of laughter, warmth, and love surged through me with such intensity that I could almost feel their warmth encasing me. As if on cue, the light flickered in response. A wave of golden energy broke from our circle, crashing into the advancing shadows with a brilliance that momentarily illuminated the darkness. The creature shrieked in fury but kept moving, unfazed by the burst of light, its form undulating menacingly. With each pulse of energy, I felt the light waning, fighting against an overwhelming force that refused to perish. "We must do it again," I urged, desperately rallying my strength, feeling the connection tethered between us starting to waver. Just then something shifted. A profound wave of darkness rolled back, and I caught sight of shadowy figures, twisted and tormented, emerging just beyond the perimeter of our circle. Their faces were pale, mouths stretched in silent screams, eyes empty, horrors bound to the darkness. A chill washed over me as I realized they were trapped, feeding the creature's power. "Help us," they mouthed silently, their voices blending into a haunting chorus. With every plea, I felt the creature draw closer, aware of our momentary distraction. It seized the opportunity, the tendrils now lashing out with wild fury, scraping the ground and snapping toward us. "Don't listen," I cried out, forcing myself to concentrate on the light. "We can't let it take hold." I felt pain in my chest as I fought against their sorrow, their silent calls for salvation. The shadows fluctuated as if confirming my fears, hunger clawing at the darkness around us. The tendrils rushed forward, cutting through the air with an eerie sound, an unsettling whisper that echoed hate, desperation, and a promise of despair. "Stay strong," I urged Lily and the child, their small hands trembling in mine. The moment felt heavier, the air thickening around us as fingers of soot-dark smoke crept between our linked arms. I could see their faces, pale with worry, and something in me broke at the thought of losing them. In that heart-stopping moment, the creature lunged again, but this time, its howls turned into a chorus of wretched voices, not one but many. Join us," they cried, the sound wrapping around me like chains tugging at my will. I felt the weight of despair bearing down on my heart, threatening to suffocate me. Then it struck. I could feel the collective spirit of the trapped souls pushing against me, an avalanche of darkness flooding through the gaps of our shield, overwhelming the light. A sharp pain pierced through my defenses, and I staggered as tendrils crashed against the barrier, a splintering sound reverberating in the air. "We're losing it," I gasped, panic flooding my veins. "Hold on. We have to believe." My voice cracked as I felt the energy around us waning, the light flickering dangerously close to being extinguished. But through the haze of despair, the love I felt for those around me surged. "No," I yelled, gathering every fragment of strength I could muster. "We will not be taken. We are stronger than this." I focused hard, drawing us together, conjuring the memories that bathed my spirit in warmth. I envisioned the sunlit days, laughter resonating in the air, all the beautiful moments that connected us. It was a lifeline in the darkness, a pinprick of hope that echoed within the shadowy depths. With a deep breath, I willed that light forward, pushing against the despair that was clawing at my heart. The glow began to pulse again, this time brighter and more resolute. "We are love. We are light," we shouted, our voices rising defiantly against the suffocating shadows. And as we shouted, the pulsing light responded, gathering momentum and force. The tendrils recoiled, twisting and churning. The creature's shrieks were drowned out by the energies radiating from our combined voices, cascading waves pouring forth, backing the shadows further. But the creature was relentless. With a howl of fury, it lashed out once more, but we countered, the light surging in a magnificent, unyielding wave. "Together we can do this," I urged, pushing the thoughts of despair aside as we screamed in unison. The creature reared back, its form shifting in the brilliance of our light, an amalgamation of darkness that blurred at the edges. I could see light fracturing through its shadowy outline, revealing the horror within. But it was still coming, gathering its strength for one last attempt to pull us under. "Nobody gets left behind," I roared as the shadows lunged again, but this time, I felt steadfast, standing firm at the center of our shield. We would not fall. In that moment, the swirling shadows reached out, coiling around us, yearning to consume. I felt the pressure overwhelming me, struggling against the rising tide of darkness, but the light surged, defiant and fierce. It battered against the shadows like waves crashing against jagged rocks. Then the atmosphere shifted, something snapped, and the darkness around us recoiled, bewildered. I could feel the creature wavering, sensing the light gnawing at its essence. I tightened my grip, urging Lily and the child to push with me. Now, let's end this. The light broke free, a brilliant beacon erupting from us, pushing outward with blinding intensity. The shadows writhed, screeching in pain, their forms cracking and dissolving as the brilliance closed in on them like a net. But even as I felt the surge of victory swell within me, the creature's laughter echoed, tinged with madness. You will never be rid of me. I'm hungered despair. You will always return to me. Those words pierced through as darkness lashed out one last time, a furious tempest seeking to drag us down. I could see figures formulating at the edges, lost souls grasping, writhing and swirling back toward the shadows, reaching out to me, their anguished pleas resonating in my mind. With terror clawing at my heart and fists clenched tightly, I refused to let go. My spirit ignited with the promise of salvation as the light pushed harder, scattering the darkness like ashes in the wind. And then, crack! The scream of the creature erupted, shaking the world around me, as the darkness shattered into thousands of fragments, splintering apart like glass. But even as a flood of light surged forth, melting shadows into nothingness, dread pulsed within me. I could see the creature lurking just beyond the edges of the light. Its distorted form flickered, wavering but refusing to be obliterated. Is this the best you can do? It sneered, a chilling taunt that sent shivers down my spine. The darkness roared back, refusing to yield, echoing within the depths of my heart. We hadn't won yet. The fear wrapped around me, whispering that this battle was far from over. But even as a flood of light surged forth, melting shadows into nothingness, dread pulsed within me. I could see the creature lurking just beyond the edges of the light. Its distorted form flickered, wavering but refusing to be obliterated. I wasn't ready to lose this fight, not when I could still feel the warmth of Lily and the child beside me. I clenched my fists, reframing my thoughts, forcing myself to focus on the light that flickered valiantly despite the overwhelming darkness. But the creature's laughter echoed through the air. It was haunting, like the wind howling through the trees on a stormy night. You think your little flames can stop me? It hissed, each syllable coated in malice. You will remember my power, and you will beg for release. The words sliced through my heart like daggers. My knees weakened as doubt crept in, clawing at the edges of my courage. But I couldn't afford to let terror engulf me. Not now. I growled fiercely, pushing back against the doubt swirling inside. I had come too far to turn back now. The air thickened, and I could feel the shadows wrapping around us again, pressing inward, closing in like a noose. Lily and the child seemed to shiver beside me, their breaths quickening as the darkness breathed its icy essence upon us. The fear was palpable, and I could see it reflected in their eyes, mirroring my own struggle. Suddenly, the ground beneath us seemed to quiver and pulse. I stumbled, feeling the earth throb like a heartbeat, each thud resonating with my anxiety. The forest around us felt alive, branches reaching out, morphing into twisted hands trying to ensnare us in their grasp. I gasped, yanking my feet free, the sensation of cold fingers brushing against my ankles chilling me to the core. Stay close. I shouted, my voice breaking through the suffocating silence. I reached out for them, pulling their small hands into mine, creating our shield again, our fragile unity stronger against the encroaching darkness. Let's try to banish it once more, I suggested, gathering every piece of hope I could muster. The light formed a halo around us, flickering uncertainly as shadows clawed at the edges. I concentrated hard, focusing on the memories of joy, the laughter of friends, the warm embrace of family that anchored my spirit. But the creature was relentless. Its presence felt like an invisible pressure against my chest, squeezing the breath from my lungs. You think those memories mean anything? The darkness taunted, curling nearer. They're ghosts, dead and forgotten, just like you will be. With a furious determination igniting in my gut, I inhaled deeply, willing the warmth of those cherished moments to envelop me. They are not forgotten, I shouted defiantly. They are alive in me. In that moment of clarity, the light erupted, cascading outwards. It pushed back against the shadows that lurked, seething and howling. But the creature stood firm, its grotesque form shifting like a moving shadow, a smirk playing across a face that seemed to melt and reform. Feel the fear, it whispered. Embrace the shadows. This light is a flicker compared to what I can do. As it spoke, the darkness flared, tendrils snapping forward like whips, striking out toward us. I barely had time to react. The tendrils slashed through the air, grazing my hip, and I yelled at the sudden pain that lanced through me like fire. It was freezing, like the bite of ice piercing flesh, and I looked down in horror to see a dark mark spreading outward, creeping along my skin. "Keep fighting," I gasped, feeling the light waver, weakened by the creeping shadows. I could sense it, a darkness that threatened to overwhelm our bond. The child next to me gasped, wide-eyed, as the shadows curled around us, whispering promises of despair that clawed at my mind. Images flashed through my thoughts, faces of loved ones blending with shadows, their cries mingling with the dark laughter echoing in my ears. I felt the despair trying to infiltrate my heart, gnawing and biting at my spirit. "No!" I screamed, forcing back the memories that threatened to imprison me. The shadows seemed to pulse in sync with my heartbeat, an unsettling rhythm that throbbed with each intake of breath. I felt moments of weakness, times when I had stumbled and fallen, but even amid that uncertainty, I wouldn't allow it to take root. "Join me," the creature sang enticingly, its voice silky smooth, wrapping around me like a thick fog. "It will be so easy. You won't have to fight. Just give in." I clenched my jaw, fighting the urge to listen. Images of all the lost souls lingered in my mind, their faces twisted in agony, trapped in the monster's grasp. I could see their eyes pleading with me, urging me not to give in. "No!" I shouted into the darkness, feeling the energy vibrate through my very soul. "I will not bow to you." The creature's laughter twisted into a shriek, and with a sudden surge, the tendrils broke loose, wrapping around Lily and the child, pulling them apart from me. "No!" I lunged forward, but the dark fingers grasped at my waist, dragging me back. The sensation was paralyzing, like being submerged in icy water, unable to breathe. "Help me!" the child cried, reaching for me, but the shadows pulled tighter, separating us, enveloping them in dark folds that shimmered with hunger. I felt my heart pound in my chest, the desperation growing with each passing moment. "Lily!" I screamed, reaching out as I felt my own strength dwindling beneath the consuming dark. Panic surged through me as the darkness continued encroaching, pulling tighter, seeking to engulf us completely. But in that instant of overwhelming fear, I tapped into something deeper. I summoned the warmth from every moment I had cherished, igniting the memories until they flared like fireworks exploding in the night sky. "Stand together," I shouted, summoning all of my energy. "We are stronger than it thinks." The words rang in my ears like a battle cry. The light surged again, bursting from me with wild intensity, momentarily pushing the shadows back. I saw faces, flickers of light that danced in the distance, beckoning us to join them, to rise above the darkness. "Fight!" I yelled, forcing myself to stay grounded, concentrating on the pulse of light that we shared. "Don't listen. We will find a way." But even as I rallied my courage, I felt the grasp of the creature tighten. The tendrils weaved through the air like serpents, wrapping around my throat, choking the resolve from my voice. A suffocating darkness pressed at the edges of my vision, and I gasped, desperation clawing at my throat. In that haunting moment, the shadowy figure transformed. It stretched higher, its form becoming more monstrous, taking on an unreal shape, like a nightmare made manifest. The air pulsed with the creature's energy, and I could sense its malevolence, an overwhelming pull that threatened to drag me down into its abyss forever. "I will consume you," it hissed, its voice like nails on glass. "And then you will see the truth. You belong to me." I could feel the anguish in every word, both a promise and a threat. My heart raced faster, pounding against my ribcage. I was teetering on the edge of that terrifying abyss, knowing that if I succumbed, there would be no returning. Just as despair threatened to swallow me whole, I looked at the fading glow, feeling the warmth flicker inside. Within the circle, I could see little wisps of light trying to fight the tendrils still wrapping around us. "Remember who you are," I shouted, forcing the words out with every ounce of strength I had left. "We are not defined by this darkness, we are defined by our light." In an instant, the light surged, igniting flames that dwarfed the creeping shadows, making them recoil in fury. The radiance expanded, illuminating the forest in a radiant glow. "Together," I yelled, clenching my fists tightly, focusing on the bond we shared. I could feel the life force of the child, the warmth emanating from Lily, entwining with my own spirit, forming an unbreakable loop against the encroaching dark. And as if driven by an unseen force, the collective power radiated outward, bursting forth, a dazzling display of light and energy pouring into the shadows. "Can you feel it?" Lily shouted, her voice fueling my resolve. We are more than this darkness. In that moment, a wave of force pushed outward, breaking the darkness with a thunderous crack that rippled through the very ground we stood upon. Cracks appeared in the shadowy arms, light spilling through in an explosion of brilliance, illuminating our faces and bathing us in warmth. But just when I thought we might win, the creature howled, rage and hatred pouring from its twisted form. This time, it struck back with all its might, dark fingers tearing through the remaining light like a knife through silk, lashing out in an unapologetic fury. My heart dropped as the dividing tendrils reached for us again, clawing at our forms, but this time we echoed back with a roar of defiance. We won't be taken. As the darkness distorted and contorted around us in a desperate frenzy, I knew we still faced a long, hard battle ahead. But within that chaos, something shifted. A glimmer of hope ignited, our resolve shining brighter than the fear that towered around us. The creature's anger surged, but there was a flicker of doubt within that chaos, a hesitation at the edge of its grasp, and I could feel it. I could sense its uncertainty, like a flame flickering against a strong wind. And in the heart of that darkness, I knew I would not let it win. Not now. Not ever. With a breath deep in my lungs, I grasped Lily and the child tighter, feeling their small bodies tremble against my grip. The air around us crackled with tension, and I could see it in their eyes. They were scared, but they were ready to fight back too. As the creature's shadowy form lunged forward again, rage spilling from it like thick, black ink, I took a stand. I summoned everything inside me, the love, the laughter, the moments of light that had kept me going through the overwhelming darkness. With a determined shout, I lifted my chin, defiance burning in my chest. "We are not afraid of you," I cried, my voice loud enough to drown out the creature's screams. The light around us pulsed with my words, swelling and igniting into a brilliant surge that pushed the darkness back. I felt a rush of energy building between us, our hearts singing a song of light, battling the cacophony of screams that erupted from the creature. It was a maddening sound, like broken glass shattering underfoot, but I refused to let it shred my resolve. The shadows writhed, retreating momentarily as if stung by our collective strength. But I knew it would retaliate, and it did. With a wave of its twisted arms, it sent tendrils crashing down like heavy chains. They whipped around and lashed against our shield, and I gritted my teeth, feeling the force of their push rattling me to my core. The darkness was trying to find cracks in our defenses, trying to worm its way inside to spread despair. I closed my eyes for just a moment and let memories flood my mind, playing in a sunlit park, sharing giggles over ice cream, watching the stars with loved ones. Those memories felt like hot embers, and I threw them into the growing fire within me. "Light, come back!" I roared, galvanizing every ounce of hope I had left. The seed of light erupted again, brighter than before, casting long, shimmering rays that pierced through the darkness like beams from the sun. The shadows twisted violently, shrieking in fury as I pressed forward, feeling our energies connect, surge, and collide with the creature's furious essence. I opened my eyes and watched in horror as the darkness began to morph, shifting and warping like a shadow twisted by flame. It pulsed in sync with my heart, each beat sending shockwaves that rattled the air, and with each pulse the creature's form flickered and faded, replaced by writhing ghosts of those it had consumed. The sight was haunting, their faces twisted in sorrow, mouths opening in silent screams, their hollow eyes begging for release. The weight of their pain pressed down, but rather than paralyze me, it ignited my determination. "I won't let you take them," I yelled, pushing through the fear that threatened to choke me. The light around us exploded again, pushing back like a tidal wave, crashing against the creature and its ghastly remnants. With a surge of power, I felt the darkness recede, its terrifying grip loosening around us. But the creature, now desperate to regain its hold, roared back, the sound echoing through the trees like a massive hunting beast. "You think you can defeat me? I am the void. The darkness is eternal." Its voice coiled around me, tightening like a snake, but I felt something else, a flicker of doubt, soft and small. Was afraid. Taking a step forward, with my heart racing, I felt the warmth of the light radiating from within, enveloping us in a comforting embrace. "No," I shouted back, each word a stone thrown into the abyss. "You are nothing. You are just a shadow of fear." I reached deep into the core of my being and unleashed my last glimmer of strength. The light roared to life, spreading out and pushing back the shadows, banishing them with every pulse of clarity and truth I had fought for. The creature shrieked in anger, the sound piercing and hollow, rising above the noise of the darkness that surrounded it, but I could feel it weakening, its form destabilizing, writhing in agony. In the heart of its fury I saw it. The flicker of weakness, a spark breaking through its faceless mass. Without hesitating, I stepped closer, clenching my fists again, determined to drive that wound deeper. "You are nothing but a remnant. Yeah. No power here," I shouted, the words resonating strong and clear in the shadowy void. The brightness intensified. Light swelled, seeping into the cracks of terror surrounding us and breaking apart the shadows into shimmering dust. I could feel victory swelling in my chest, blooming brighter with every heartbeat. Shadows flickered away like wisps of smoke, and with a final, defiant push, the darkness shuddered and then exploded outward, dissolving into nothingness. I gasped. Silence fell. It was a heavy, deafening silence, and in its wake, I felt a dizzying rush sweep over me, like being spun around in an endless sea. The residual tendrils that had gripped us faded into thin air, leaving just echoes of cold shadows behind. I looked around, breathless. Lily and the child stood beside me, blinking and dazed. They were unharmed. I rushed to them, wrapping them in a warm embrace, tears streaming down my face as the enormity of what we had survived crashed over me. "We did it," I whispered, holding them tightly. Their warmth was a reminder that we had faced the abyss and emerged whole. But as I turned to survey the remnants of the forest, a chill slithered down my spine. For a brief moment, I thought I saw a shape in the shadows, a flicker in the corner of my eye, a reminder of the darkness lurking just beyond the light. Was it gone for good? Or would it wait for the perfect moment to rise again? The forest remained still, but the knowledge of what we had faced lingered heavily in the air. I knew the fight was over for now, but the scars of that encounter would never truly vanish. A shiver ran through me as I clenched Lily and the child tightly again, a reminder that light can shine bright, but darkness always waits, testifying to the endless cycle of fear and strength. This battle was ours. We won it together. But somewhere in the recess of my mind, I could still hear the echo familiar laughter, a chilling reminder that the darkness can always come back, waiting and watching in the shadows. We left the forest that day, our hearts heavy but relieved, a fragile peace wrapping around us. But every step felt like a promise. Memories of light and laughter would always be there to remind me of our strength, even as every shadow whispered of the darkness left behind.